Okay, so Adam, let us know when we can start the opening remarks. Let's see who I see. Oh.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay,
well, Mr. Chair, and we got to set up the meeting still a bit more.
So just let me know when I can get started.
We will.
Michael, you can start with your opening remarks while we figure things out.
Yeah, we're ready to go now.
Great. Good morning. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. We acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All video virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We also ask that you mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelists when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time, and at all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you can leave your name, address, and email address, because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, in the event of an appeal, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body and, in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure is as follows. We go in order after first dealing with the deferral requests, and we have many on this morning's agenda. In making your submissions where an application is uncontested, which really means that there's no one in the room or online to make submissions either for or against the proposal, usually against. We may have letters of written letters and comments from city departments, but if there's no one there, if we don't need a presentation, it's up to the applicant or the agent if they wish to make it an application or make their presentation in full. Otherwise, they're to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee if they're not making a presentation. The committee may ask then questions of the applicant and then take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant and agent or their agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and the clock is up on the board, and we will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark or have exceeded it and ask you to wrap up. Any presentations or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please start off by clearly stating your name and address for the record, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and makes their presentation to the committee on the application where there are other people present. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions made to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak, and generally we first call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentation, and when all other speakers have finished, the applicant or their agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that were raised by the speaker. That will then mark the end of the discussion, and the matter is then taken into the committee for a decision. Okay, some housekeeping matters to take care of. First of all, confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll move approval of the previous minutes.
Okay, I think that I recognize Stan Comeric's voice. I see him on screen. I didn't see everyone. And a seconder for that.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All in favor? The minutes are approved. Do any of the panel or staff members have any declarations of interest to declare with respect to the items on us this morning?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mishi, item 1 and 2.
Okay. So when we hear that, you can will not participate. Can you indicate the nature of your conflict?
Yes, the agent is a client of mine.
Okay, thank you. That is noted. Okay, none others. Okay, if no others, I guess the next thing is to go through, we typically do the deferrals first, and we have a lot of deferrals, as we said at the outset. Out of 23 items, I believe we have 11 requests for deferral. I believe at least one of them looks like will probably be going ahead, which is item number 15, because there's been further materials filed. Although we had a deferral request, both, sorry, is it 15 or 16? Okay, maybe it's 16. Okay, so we might as well go in order with respect to call those in order and get those off the agenda before we move. So the first two conflicts are the ones that Michi has the conflict on, items 1 and 2, which we will hear together.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, and also client with the consultancy firm I work with, just to clarify that. Thanks.
Okay, the applicant, not the agent. Correct?
The
Okay.
agent.
So this is an application to legalize two applications to legalize and maintain the dwelling that is currently under construction. Previous Committee of Adjustment applications approved variances relating to lot area, front yard setback, side yard setback, and rear yard setback. We have a we have the previous approval. We have before us the two previous decisions. We have the deferral request from the agent Ida Evangelista. Further to our conversation, we would like to defer to allow us the opportunity to review the application further with planning. We do have opposition from 58 Floral Parkway. Looks like we do have people on the line here. We have three neighbors on Floral Parkway, 59, 54, and 62, who we will have to weigh in with in light of the deferral request. We do have one letter of opposition. So transportation is okay. The opposition says it's already built and they didn't stop when they were supposed to stop. So we want to hear a little bit about, especially with the deferral when it's a matter of legalizing something. We want to make sure if it's, why it's being deferred and not for forever to come back and have to deal with this. So it appears there are additional variances now being requested. And these are two mirror applications. So notwithstanding the previous approvals, there's a request for, substantial or at least some differences from what was approved, 5 variances. So we do have the speakers. So let's hear on the issue of the deferral, because that's what we're talking about, not on the merits. As if the neighbors are listening, we're going to ask you to weigh in not on the merits, but only on the issue of the deferral. So let's hear from Mrs. Evangelista.
Mr. Chair, before we go to Ida, I just want to bring to your attention that that only one area resident is present on the call. The area resident at 59 Floral Parkway is present.
Okay. So
we also have actually though area resident from 58 Floral in the crowd.
Okay. Thank you. That was the one I believe we have a letter before us is from 58, right? Pat Bellani. Okay, so we'll have to and the works, I guess, as I just said in the opening remarks, we will hear from the people in the room first, and then the virtual people second. Is the practice when we have both people present in person and virtually. So let's hear from Mrs. Evangelista, and this is for with respect to both lots that were and consent to approve the variances to create this lot, parts 1 and 2. Mrs. Evangelista, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 212 Cornelius Parkway. We are asking for a deferral. I would like to add that I did present the initial applications at the very beginning. I've just now joined the team for this reapplication. While reviewing the applications, there are some discrepancies on the plans and to what was submitted. Zoning has a lot of questions. Planning has some questions. So we are asking for a deferral because there are some zoning matters that conflict with what has done. So we are currently getting an as-built survey because what zoning has identified is not actually in fact of what we believe has transpired on the property. So we are asking for a deferral to allow us the opportunity to have a surveyor to come to the property and prepare an as-built drawing. And that is currently what we are working on. We're working up with zoning. We are working with planning. We have had to identify various matters. So for us to move forward and there's a discrepancy with a variance, that will not help us at our building at the permit stage, because from what we can determine at this time, some of the variances that are mentioned do not in fact exist, and I believe one is slightly more than what it states. So that's why we're asking for a deferral, because for me to get in front of you, Mr. Chair, and the panel members, I want to have an ironclad a list of variances in front of me.
Yeah,
And I
there's no,
want to know that planning is comfortable with everything, and so is zoning.
right. So obviously, you're here to legalize things that went beyond the approval that was given initially. You need to get those clarified so that you don't have outstanding issues at that point. And maybe some of them you said are going to be less or eliminated, or some will be even more higher. So, and I guess it is built, or it's already, we heard from the neighbors, I guess it's already been built. I don't know, in terms of, you're a reputable agent. It's not like this is going to kind of get deferred and come back on the agenda 3 years later, which we've seen with some items where they just put in back in an as-built situation. We obviously can't let this thing. So are they? It's as-built and they're actually already living in it, or?
No, nobody's living in it at this time. It is built.
Right. Is it a stop work order or no? There was no stop work order. It just sort of, they realized.
From what I understand, no, there is not. But it's just, planning when it went through the stages. And like I said, I just joined the team for the second round. So when I had the conversation with planning, there's just a few, and even, inspections, there's just a few things that are not clear, that are not clarified. So we need to do that. That's very important to be able to move forward and satisfy zoning, inspections, and planning.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions, panel members, for Mrs. Evangelista? If not, we'll weigh in with the neighbor, who's the neighbor on the line is the one who's written us the letter. Okay, so let's hear from, I guess, Mr. Pat Villani is in the room, so we'll have him come to the podium, and then we'll hear from the neighbor Ann Stirp at 58. Sorry, at 59. Mr. Villani's at 58. So I have the screen showing my WebEx, so I don't see. Is Mr. I don't see if he's at the podium because I don't see the room. I see what's on the screen. Well, that's okay.
Yep, go ahead if you could state your name and address.
So I am Pat Villani from 58 Floral Parkway. The properties are substantially complete. My biggest concern is why wasn't it stopped at an earlier stage? Because I'm pretty sure that you have inspectors going out to take a look at foundations once they're poured, make sure they're conforming. The area residents, anybody I spoke to, nobody was informed of the first halt to the construction. We just saw it stop and we all figured that the builder was busy elsewhere, but nobody was informed what was happening. Then construction continued again and they were completed. So we had no idea what was going on until we received these papers.
Yeah, Mr. Villani, so you'll have a chance when this matter comes back before us to talk about the merits, and I realize you've, for the first time in 2 years, people have actually driven down to the Civic Center. Not me today, but you have. And I always get to see you. So we're not dealing with the merits at this point. We're going to hear an explanation from Mrs. Evangelista, client of, I received also the letter, your letter up on the board here, asking about these questions, which are certainly valid questions. Well, I asked, was there a stop work order? How does it get completed if there was a stop work order? We'll hear about that, but I guess before we do that, we'd like to, Mrs. Evangelista has indicated they have to go through and clarify that these variances noted are the actual variances, and they're not more or less or fewer or more of them. So we're not going to be proceeding on the merits today. We just weigh in with all the people who happen to be present on the line or in person with respect to that. But so we're not going to hear from you on the merits today, but I realize we're all due. You neighbors are due, as the planning department, or building department an explanation of how this got completed if they already knew that the setbacks approved were being exceeded, and why they didn't come back at that point rather than just going ahead and completing the house. Okay, so you will have a chance, or we will all have a chance to ask those questions. It's just not going to be today. And as we just heard, Mrs. Evangelista is just back on the team recently. She was the agent that got the consent to sever the property done back when it was done. And we'll get to the bottom, but it's not going to be today, unfortunately.
That's fine. I just, my only concern is it proceeded. I don't blame the builder at this point. The inspection system is in place, to catch things early, and it wasn't caught early. And the variances requested are not minor; they're now major. In my opinion, they're major. You're talking about a bigger home.
Okay, so you'll make. Just
That's
to let
fine.
you know, the committee is required
I
when
understand.
something is as built to make no inference on the fact that it's built, either in
Mhm.
approving or not. We have to sort of take the position as if it would have been approved at the outset. And if there's ramifications, there's ramifications.
That's fine.
And we'll have to, and that's in part the explanation we're going to hear from as to how this happened, and then again how it actually got completed. Because usually when these things, as you know, come before us, they come before us because they were noted, construction was stopped, and then they come before us to establish whether it's still minor or not, and they can proceed, or whether they have to make alterations. Obviously, a lot easier to do the alterations before it's completed.
I agree.
So
Thank you.
we
Thank
share in your. Okay, sir. Thank you. Any questions? Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Villani before he goes back to his seat? Okay, none. In that case, we'll hear from the other neighbor present on the line, who is the neighbor at 59, and Stirp.
Mr. Chair, members, Anna has asked to be on video while speaking, so I'm going to go ahead and make them a panelist now. Anna, you can now go ahead and start your video by clicking the Start Video button at the bottom center of the screen. I'll go ahead and unmute you now.
Good morning, Mrs. Speaker.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
after Anna comes on, I'm a neighbor as well. I'm using her computer. I'm at 54 Floral Parkway, so I'd like to speak as well.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, you were on the speaker list, but I guess since you're sharing, you're together on the phone.
Exactly.
That's Mario De Palma.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can speak as well after her on the same device.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's first hear from Maria. And again, we're not hearing from you.
Mr. Chair, it's Anna.
Merits to it. We're just dealing with the issue of the deferral.
Oh, hello, Mr. Clark.
You press your button. We can see you. I think you've been made a panelist visually, but you have to, I believe, do that on your end because we're not seeing you.
Correct. And if you'd like to have your video on, it's your responsibility to start your own video at this time.
I just want to say simple what I think about the
restart the
community
timer?
here. What?
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Anna.
Okay. Yeah, this has been a very nice community, and I was gladly to live in this area since the 1970 now. And the reason is that had an integrity of single homes, families in the area, in the community. And where I see now, it's an eyesore built already.
Yeah.
And this property is not for this area what they built.
Mhm.
There was a single home before, a nice home. We have now, whoever walks by, they say these buildings are eyesore to the
Mhm.
eye. And now they talking they want to build a duplex. This is not the area for duplex. This area is for single families homes. So this is all I want to say.
Yeah, ma'am, this matter was already back in January 2022. They got permission to split the lot and to build 2 new houses.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, and now they're just coming here because they built a little extra than they were supposed to in terms of the variances. So, but we're not going to do that today because Mrs. Evangelista has to make sure that these are the actual 5 changes since they were given permissions to make certain changes back in January 2022. So we're not going to do that today, but you will be re-notified. And if you'd like to come back here when it's going to come back on to be heard on the merits, you can certainly make representations at that time in submissions. So watch out. You will be, if you receive the notification this time, you'll receive a notification when it's brought back on a further agenda.
Okay.
Some-
All I want to confirm that it is taking away the integrity in the community. All I want to make my points. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Anna Sturp? Okay, in that case, let's go back to Mrs. Evangelista for
Mr. Chair,
any necessary.
as a reminder, there was another person in that same
well,
space that
yes.
wanted to speak.
Right, it's 54 who's with Maria.
Mario.
Mario, right. So Anna, you passed the phone over to Mario. Thank you. Okay, Mario, you're
So, Mr. Clark, I'm not sure what we're discussing today. So, like, are we talking variances or like what
Can
should
you just
we be
state your
discussing?
name and address before you start speaking? Thank you.
Sorry, Mario De Palma, 54 Floral Parkway, M6L 2B5.
okay.
So the
Go
question,
ahead.
I'm not sure what we're discussing. Are we talking variances? Because you
Well,
mentioned.
not today. Not today. We have those 5 variances noted on each
Right.
of them. But Mrs. Evangelista, as you heard at the outset, she's not sure. They need some time to establish if these are they have to be accurate, because there's no point talking about if it's not accurate. So what she has to do is she has to meet with planning, and they have to take a further look at these 5 variances, because a lot of it is how it's interpreted in terms of how they establish and then make certain determinations. So she's saying she's just recently been brought back on the file. She was around January 22. She was the agent at that time, but she's only been brought back on the file now. So she has to meet with community planning and come back to make sure these 5 variances are not different. And once we know what the 5 variances, or maybe there's 6 or there's 4, then we'll be talking about it on the merits. And as I mentioned at the outset, the fact that it's already been built is something that the committee does not consider when they make that determination. They'll have to determine, once we know what the actual variances are, whether it's still reasonable, as if it hadn't been built. And we'll have to hear an explanation, which Mrs. Evangelista doesn't quite know because she's new on the file, as to how this actually happened, which was as the neighbor in the room was indicating, who wrote the letter, as to how it happened. Because usually these things are caught earlier on when they pour the foundation or whatever. So how did they finish the house in this instance? So we're going to hear about that, but not today.
Okay, but in the initial plan, was the house planned to be a single duplex or triplex? Because the literature I received from the city, like, is very confusing. It's hard to say whether it is for a single dwelling or if it's
Well, what they got approved back in January 2022, sir, was to first of all, demolish the existing house and to build 2 new houses, one on each side. And those were the new detached dwellings with attached garages. So I guess if there's some issue of how many residences, the city is now allowing multiple units, right? They revised the laws. So we'll hear about that as well. But they were approved, again, to sever the lot and build new detached dwellings, which is what they did. But they're obviously, the parameters appear to be somewhat different. And we will come back at a later date once we know exactly how many and the extent of those variances, which may, Mrs. Evangelista has noted, may be different than the ones before us today, which is why we can't do that today. Because before they go ahead, they have to know what the variances are, which may not be. Okay?
So they could
So
be
you
greater.
have a chance to make those. You'll be re-notified, or there'll be a sign back on the property, and hopefully it won't be too long. It's not going to be in the winter. I hope it's going to be in the fall, because it's not right. This has to be dealt with, but it's reasonable at this point for the matter to be deferred in order for those variances to be clarified.
Okay, one last point.
Yep.
The city states that these variances are minor, but the maximum permitted lot coverage is 20% greater than it should be. That's substantial.
Right. Well, again, they were given back in the approval in 2022, January, they were given approval to have a lot that was smaller and less frontage. They got a frontage of 6.5 from the front yard, the setbacks, and also the size of the lot. And so again, that's something given, but if they've gone beyond, they have to, that's why they're coming back. Because it appears they built more than they were given the approval for.
A house for this building.
Okay,
Thank you.
with that other date.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll see. Well, hopefully you'll, if you still, you'll still want to make, all three of you have spoken. If you want to come back and certainly make deputations on the merits, you will have that opportunity once this matter comes back on. Okay, so let's go back then to Mrs. Evangelista, just to summarize or to respond to what the neighbors have had to say. Obviously, it's when, neighbors, when something gets approved, and especially if it's not, mutually acceptable to the neighborhood to split the lot, and then they go ahead and they build, whether it's a little more, these things got twigs. So once we figure it out, so I know you didn't do this, Mrs. Evangelista, but if you can just respond.
Absolutely. And I will say this, I did get Mr. Villani at number 59, Mr. DePalma at 54, but I did not get the address of Miss Sturpey. I'm not sure where she lives because
She's 59.
She's at 59?
Yeah.
And Mr. Villani?
58.
58. Okay. Because what I will do, so this is what's transpired. So there has been inspections on the property from the very beginning, including at foundation stage. So that much, that has happened. The inspections, they have been there. They inspected the property, and they have, proceeded all along. So now, the mother of the builder was terminal. She passed away. The builder then at that point, because they were busy, they were with family at the time. That took quite some time. He put someone else in charge. In the meantime, there was a revision to the application because they went from a peaked to a flat roof house. And that's where I need to dissect this application. Right? I want to make sure that everything is how it should be. I want to talk to inspections, planning, zoning. I want to have that opportunity so that when I do come back, because I also noticed, there are a few modifications that did transpire in the plans that I also want to confirm. So in that being said, I also will, and as you know me, Mr. Chair, and so do the members, I always do reach out to the neighbors, and I will reach out to these three neighbors amongst all the other area residents that are affected here. In relation to a duplex, a triplex, it is a single family dwelling with a secondary suite. That is the intent. They want to have a, I know there is one family that, and I just actually reached out to the owners. There is one family that is interested in purchasing the house, and they do want an in-law suite in the home. So that, yes, and as we know, that is permitted. But I will clarify, I would like the opportunity. I do have to have conversation, as I mentioned previously, with zoning and with planning, just to clarify, some of these issues. And then at which point, once I've done that, at which point I will then reach out personally to these neighbors and area neighbors around, just to bring, some clarity and help them understand what's transpired.
Okay. Thank you. Any members, any questions for Mrs. Evangelista or comments, or is someone ready for a motion on both items to?
As part of your motion, if I could ask you to include that the applicant provide an accurate as-built survey of the two properties, because there's discrepancy between the survey on file and the plans on file. and also to clarify that the plans are correct based on what has been built. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, members.
I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Chair, that the construction is complete. There's nothing left to be built. You're at 100%. Ms. Evangelista?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. The exterior, I believe the interior still, there is some matters on the interior that still needs to be completed. But the exterior footprint has, yes.
Okay. So we're not going to be coming back with anything changed substantially from what's on the outside. This one boggles my mind a little bit, and I'm just concerned about abuse of process here. You're not going to come back then with a proposal for multiple units in these homes or something that's quite different from what was originally thought of.
Through you, Mr. Chair, member, with the greatest of respect, no, as I mentioned, it is single-family dwelling with a secondary suite. That much I do believe, because I do know that one particular home, as I mentioned, they do want an in-law suite. And that's what the intent is here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is anyone ready to make a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I will move for deferral to enable a revised, an as-built survey to be completed, so that a new application can be made to accurately set out the precise variances requested, and that the revised application will include a revised, updated set of as-built drawings.
And a survey, I guess.
And the survey, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so again, it won't be a new application. It's just a revised application. So, it's just they're going to check that these numbers are accurate based on a fresh set of eyes and, review with the plans examiner to make sure that what's left as as the new variances here are in fact what is before us and needs addressing. Okay, so can we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, both matters are deferred on that basis. Thank you, Mrs. Evangelista, and thank you to the neighbors who appeared on the phone and appeared in person. Okay, the next deferral is item number 6, 103 WYNDALE Drive. This is an application for a second-story addition above the existing dwelling with 7 variances. It was marked as D4 on our planning memo. And it appears we need an automatic deferral here because we're missing a variance for dwelling lengths. In fact, there are 8 variances, but only 7 on the notice. So there has to be a recirculation. We do have a letter, I believe, from James Field without an address. In addition to, that's all we had on this file. There's no comments from city departments. But we do have a missing variance. So the speaker on this application is Sajidul Islam, the agent for the applicant.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring to your attention that the agent that didn't sign up is no longer present on the call. They were present during the microphone check, but have since dropped off.
Okay. I suggest, I guess we have to hold it down, but while staff tries to make a contact again with the agent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So the next deferral we're going to deal with is item number 12. Going in order. Item number 12 is 711 to 721 Royal York Road. And it's an application to construct a new school with 2 variances, coverage and parking. And we have a request at the request D6, which is at the request of the applicant. The deferral request says they need a bit more time to complete the sign declaration and to post the sign. Request the deferral it says by 2 weeks if possible. So I'll leave that with staff to deal with. So the speakers on this application are Amin Ibrahim, the agent, as well as one of 2 neighbors at 6 Oakfield in person, either Mr. and Mrs. Warwick.
Mr. Chair, I can confirm they are present in the chambers at this time.
Okay. So, and I assume the agent is on the line. Amin Ibrahim.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
So, yes, we would, it's Amin Ibrahim. I'm with Cohn-Schneer Architects, located at 20 Camden Street. And yes, we would like to request a deferral to give the Toronto Catholic District School Board a bit more time to sign the form and post the notice in the neighborhood. And also there was one of the documents that was on the file here was from Urban Forestry requesting a deferral as well. And we concur with that. We have submitted the SPA application, and there was additional documentation that was submitted a little bit later. So I'm guessing they haven't had a chance to go through that yet.
That's funny because when I went through, I didn't see any requests from Urban Forestry. Did anyone else note that, or did I miss it?
I only saw it yesterday myself.
Okay. Okay, so members, any questions for the agent? If not, we'll hear from them. There's a neighbor in the room, perhaps here to speak on the merits, but it's only on the matter of the deferral. So if there's no questions for Mr. Ibrahim, let's hear from either Mr. or Mrs. Warwick. I'm not sure who's coming to the podium.
Sir, if I can add, if I can just interrupt for a second, if I can add one more request. Our client has requested that if we get a deferral, it would be in September. So it's a little bit more than 2 weeks. It's about 4 weeks.
Well, you can discuss with staff as to what's available. You know, in the old days, things have sort of quieted down with the economy. So there is probably room on the agendas when you're ready to go. Unlike in the old days, you have to be placed on an available agenda after you do what you have to do. In case you said you just a little more time to do the sign declaration. I assume it's a larger on it because it's a bigger site. You have to get something printed and placed on the property.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a neighbor at the podium. I assume you're here. We only hear from one of you to speak on the merits about whether the school should be built. But today we're just dealing with the issue of the deferral. So unfortunately, I can't hear from you on the merits today. That'll be done at another date when this matter is brought back on, after the agent has placed the sign on the property so that he can legally proceed and satisfies the notice requirement. And there are only the 2 variances here. So good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. So in other words,
can you please start off by stating your name and address for the record, please?
Okay. Franny Warwick, 6 Oakfield Drive, and we are the neighbors to the school. And so, in other words, because I was concerned about the size of the school and then the parking, but will that not be talked about today?
That's correct.
Okay.
Fortunately, I know you down at the Civic Center to talk about this on the merits, whether the school should be built. Today, we're not going to deal with that. Heard the school board needed more time in order to get the sign done and put it up and sign the sign declaration. They have to swear or declare that the sign has been placed on the property as is required, especially because the the mailing notice only goes to people within 60-meter radius. It doesn't go to a lot of people. So that's why it's important the sign be put up. And if you have concerns and you want to marshal or discuss other neighbors who may not have seen the sign, that's certainly sometimes what people do is when they have concerns, they get all the neighbors together to see if they have concerns also.
Yes, because we had concerns about the construction time and when it starts and how long it's going to take, and also with the construction vehicles. But that's the first notice we ever got. After all this time, they have put up that sign that there's a school going to be built, and I could never find anything online to explain a little bit more about this. So that's the first notice we have been sent to. That's why we're here, and we're hoping maybe we could get some clarification about some of the questions we have.
Okay. Well, just to let you know, the Committee of Adjustment deals with the built form, the actual plan, like the plan concerns about the school, how big it is, how tall it is, whether there's enough parking, whether it takes up too much area on the lot. Issues like construction and noise and dirt and disruption, that is not something that's dealt with. Obviously, that's a big concern, especially a school probably takes longer to build than it does a single family house. So there is disruption to the neighborhood, but that's something that if there are problems or issues with drainage or noise or disruption and cleanliness or time of start of work, those are the things that are dealt with by the building department. And when people have problems, they can call 311 to deal with that, or deal. In this case, there's going to be a site foreman. This would be a major project, so there are avenues for you to deal with those. But the construction-related issues are not something that we consider. We consider what's it going to look like once it's built.
Okay.
Not the actual pain and sweat and tears to get it built. And we realize that causes disruption, whether it's a single family home being built across from you or behind you, or in this case, a school being built. So, but that's not something you'll be able to come to next time to talk about. You'll talk about the size of the part of the school, and the parking, if the parking is inadequate, and how that's going to impact the neighborhood. Okay? Just to let you know, but construction is not something we're going to be dealing with at any time.
Thank you very much. And we hope we're going to get more notification from whoever's involved in this in the future.
Yeah. The agent has heard from you from Cohen-Schneer Architects, so perhaps they can take a message that they have to, or it's a good idea to reach out to certain neighbors or make something available on their website so that people who are going to be impacted by this school in their neighborhood know exactly what's been going on.
That's correct.
As good relation. So they're hearing what you said. Mr. Ibrahim is on the line, and perhaps he can. It also says, I'm looking here that then I'm going to ask him. It says the owner is the Toronto District School Board, but we've heard it's the Catholic District School Board. So I'm just clarifying if the ownership is correct, or if in fact it is a TSB school, and in fact they're made a deal with the Catholic school, and it's going to be a Catholic school board school. So that's a question I'll have for Mr. Ibrahim, if we have the right owner for us.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Ibrahim, a little bit about public relations, and a little bit of just to clarify that we have the right owner noted on the.
Yes, so the owner noted on the agenda is incorrect. The owner is in fact the Toronto Catholic District School Board, who are also currently have a high school on the same property. So essentially the existing school that's being replaced.
Okay.
I'd like to speak to Mr. and Mrs. Warwick. Thank you for your comments and your concerns. And we certainly do hear you. And the Catholic School Board, I will relay this message to them very clearly. And they are very good at having public meetings, and just to keep the residents informed. And of course, as Mr. Chair noted, in terms of construction and all of that, although that's not addressed here, certainly when there's a contractor on board, prior to that, we will have conversations. We will have opportunities for conversations with the neighbors in terms of construction schedule and trucks on roads and all that sort of thing.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Members, any questions or someone ready to make a motion of deferral?
I'll move a motion for deferral so that proper notice can be posted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kamerick. Seconder for that.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. McCluskey. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. We'll see you back here again. And thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Warwick for coming down to the chambers to deal with this. Okay, the next item is item number 13, next deferral item. This is a 16 Highgate, and it's an application to construct a 2-story rear addition, a 1-story front addition, a new rear deck, and a 2nd-story south side addition. There are 7 variances, and again, in the additional materials, we did have planning condition of approval, but it looks like we have an automatic deferral situation in the additional materials. We have been advised of that there's variance missing. And the speaker on this application is only the one. Addison Known Price is the agent, and it looks like she is in person. He is in person. Hello, good morning.
There we go. Is this, I hear it now. Perfect. Okay, good morning, Mr. Chair, fellow committee members. Addison Milne Price, Planner Design Plan Services, located at 900 East Mall, Suite 300. Now, quickly, just with regards to the deferral, I was aware of the variance that was missing on the public notice. I had confirmed with the application technician that this would be addressed prior to the hearing and prior to the deadline for notifying the neighbors and area residents. If that's not the case, if that hasn't been done, that's unfortunate, but obviously if it's mandated to defer, then there's nothing that we can do.
Okay. Yeah, nothing we can do on that. Any questions for Mr. Milne Price, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll move deferral to enable the missing variance to be included.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. We'll see her again, sir.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
Okay. Next item on the deferral list is item number 15, which is 11 Westchester Road. This is an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage with 10 variances. And in fact, we have on our planning memo D1 and 2, which means planning needs more time to deal with this matter. We had urban forestry condition 3, and in the additional materials, the agent is also requesting the deferral. So it's 1, 2, and 6, all 3 of those reasons on our reasons for deferral list. And the speaker on this application is Nafish Zangiabadi.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
This
So
is
I guess
Nafisa Zangiabadi.
today.
Yes, this is Nafisa Zangiabadi. I'm the applicant, and we would like to request a deferral as we need more time to revise the drawings as per staff recommendation and get a new zoning notice. That's why we're requesting a deferral.
Okay. Okay, members, any questions? If not, can I have a motion?
Move to accept the request for the deferral to allow for proper zoning notice.
Thank you, Ms. Rick. Seconder for that.
I'll second, Stan.
Thank you, Stan. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. Ms. Zangiabadi, we'll see you here again. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Okay, let's do one more deferral request, which this one may actually not be deferred, but we'll figure it out. And if it's so, then it'll go back in the hopper to be dealt with in order on the merits as we go through the agenda. So this address is 6 Hill Heights Road, and it's an application to convert the existing storage space in the basement into an additional dwelling unit and to convert a portion of the existing laundry room to amenity space. And there are 5 variances. We did have in the additional materials, we have a landscape plan revisions page. 3 of those 7 variances that I mentioned have been revised and 2 eliminated and 1 added. I assume there's no issue with notice on that. And we had a request by community planning variances of 1 and 2 to defer. So we're going to hear from the agent whether that and as well transportation wanted to defer, and whether these last minute additions changes any of that. So we'll hear from the speaker on this application. Yeah, Jan Timstra, and that's the only speaker, and in person.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, it's been a while. Yeah, my name is Jan Teamstra, 36 Burgess Avenue, Toronto.
Okay.
We prefer not. We've deferred this before with dealing with the planning department, and we've worked with them looking at the issue comes down to amenity space. And the client prefers to be heard rather than being deferred again.
Okay, so you have supplied certain information. You can't tell me that yes, planning has now seen this and it satisfies their concern, but we can see they put up on the board the revised. There are substantial changes that you made. 3 of the 7 variances have been revised. 2 have been eliminated.
Sorry, I think you're
7.
looking at the
Yeah,
wrong
I think you're looking at
revision page. We sent out a second one that was for the incorrect address. There was a second email that went out yesterday. It's for 6 Hill Heights.
Yes.
Not 16 Highgate.
So am I reading the wrong?
The additional
wrong information on
materials had the wrong
material?
revision page for item 16.
Oh, I see. Okay, I didn't. So
There
I
was-
wasn't aware of that. So
If Adam can share the revised one.
yes,
Mr.
question that makes a difference whether we should be, on how the members are going to vote on the deferral request, because we do have them asking for reasons 1 and 2. We need more time to review and to meet to make changes, and
But
there have
they
been
had-
changes. But you're saying,
Mr. Chair, this was previously deferred specifically to discuss
Yeah.
its planning, so I don't know why they're asking for more time now if it was already rescheduled. They should just be
right. Okay,
commenting
this is
on the.
read. So all I see is 16 Highgate. This is just wrong, plain wrong. This is not before us. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a different item. So Adam is sharing it on the screen right now. This is the one for 6 Hill Heights. There was just a correction for variance number 2, but the variances remain the same.
Okay, so we do have and 16 Highgate. It's not even the same street, right? And do we
Yes,
have
that was
the
just a
application
mistake.
13. Okay, that got deferred anyway already. We already dealt with the automatic deferral on that one. Okay, never mind. So we don't. That's all we have. So relevant. We don't now have a lot of changes to the variances. So again, it's at your peril, sir. If you want to, depends what the members think. So first of all, ask if the members have any questions for you on the issue of whether we should be going to deferral. And if not, the members are going to decide whether this should be deferred in light of community planning, or whether you like to go ahead. This was already deferred from the January 23rd hearing, and whether they feel it should go ahead as you've requested. So, members, any questions for Mr. Tyndall? And sorry, Tinstra. Any questions for him? whether,
I have a question.
Michi?
Yep. Just
Yeah.
wondering what's been done between now and I guess back in January when it was initially deferred.
Well, we've added more amenity space than previously. Previously, our first application was for 2 apartment units, a 1-bedroom one and a bachelor unit. Because we didn't have any interior amenity space, because it's an existing building built in the 60s, they didn't have any. The client was willing to forego the bachelor unit and make that into an indoor amenity space.
I believe transportation is asking for some revised drawings. Are you aware of that? And when were you asked for those?
No, I don't. I'm not aware of the transportation request.
That's the nature of their deferral request.
It's on the file.
I'm sorry, I've overlooked that then.
Mr. Chair,
we have
members,
one from planning.
We'll look to bring it up on the screen.
Their concern is that there's no accessible parking spaces.
That's correct. The building is, if you look at the elevations, the building is on a property that's sloping towards the back. From the parking lot, the only access into the building is to a side set of stairs on the east side of the building. So also when you enter the building from the front, it's a split level entry.
You're getting into the merits of it, but you're not
Yes.
aware of the request, the transportation made to you then?
Well, we are aware that one of the variances is that we need to provide an accessible parking space.
Hello? You just lose the room or something, or
Nope.
did I lose the room?
No, I think we're
okay.
still here. I think that the point I was making is that transportation was requesting some additional information. And did they not make that request to you, like that you're not aware of it?
I was not aware of the transportation request.
It's in the July 26, 2023 memo. Is that the one
Yes.
we're looking at here?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's dated, like I said, dated July 26th. I assume it was on the information site. They wanted a deferral is what I'm looking at. They go through every single variance and they conclude that they want a deferral. So obviously to deal with this matter. So again, another issue on the deferral. So something that should be addressed before you come back. Okay, any other questions, or is someone ready to make a motion to defer this matter? I don't see any hands. Now I see one. Mr. Taylor, thank you.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable moving forward on a decision on this matter. You know, we're looking at deferral requests for 2 reasons from planning and another substantial reason from transportation. So until the issues that have been identified by those departments have been resolved and we have evidence in writing before we make a decision, I move for deferral.
Okay. Okay, seconded for that.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Stan. All in favor? It's unanimous. The matter for you here again.
Thank you.
And okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's try to do, we have the next one on the deferral memo, item number 17, 169 Lake Promenade in Etobicoke. We have the agent, Meran Hidari, and we have Andy Choles appearing from the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. We haven't seen Andy in a long time. But we have a request from Community Planning to defer for items 1 and 2. Meaning they have more time and they have concerns with the application. So let's hear from Meran Hidari first. And again, this is just to introduce the matter. It's 169 Lake Promenade to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage with 16 variances.
Mr. Chair and members, Mayor Ann's asked to be on screen for their presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and make them a panelist now.
Okay.
And you're now able to turn or turn off your video. I'll go ahead and unmute you.
So yeah, urban forestry is also looking for conditions 2 and 3, 16 variances, including an FSI of 1.32 where 0.35 is permitted. That's kind of a one that stood out with me. We correspondence with TRCA regarding the proposed habitable space is no greater than the amount, the current site conditions. They're satisfied with that. And we have the materials from the previous matter. This matter was deferred from the December 8th, 2022 hearing. There were 13 variances at that time. It was deferred to consult with community planning, and now we're back here and we have 16 variances. So let's hear from the agent on the issue of the request, not on the merits, but on the request from community planning that this matter to be deferred. And with speaker.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, member of the committee. My name is Mehran Haidari, designer and applicant for this application.
Morning.
Yes, we deferred this application because the community planning requests some changes on the drawing. And during a couple months that we deal with this matter, we change a couple times the drawing, and the final drawing in front of you is something is with satisfaction of the planning department, but because of the timeline, so they couldn't have enough time to circulate the new comment, and so for this reason we are deferring for the August 31st this application. And we improved some variances on the list, and if you see the waiver that we submitted, some of them is improved, and right now,
sir, are you on your merits? Are you okay? Are you consenting or agreeing to community planning's request to defer this matter?
Yes, of course. Yes, yes,
okay.
Of course. Yes.
That's what I want to know. And it looks like from looking at the location map, these are in the survey. These are you and the next door neighbor have very skinny lots. It looks like it was like half the size of the other ones, which is maybe why you have a very high GFA number, floor space index number rather. And that seems to have gone up last hearing at 0.65 to 1.32. So we'll obviously have to hear about that. But for today, all we have to know is that you agree that this matter be revised. I'm a little concerned that since this matter was deferred in January, it's actually, I haven't done a careful review of how the variances are, but there are more variances, and your main variance, or the one that matters most to a lot of people, the FSI, has more than doubled. So is that just, I assume you haven't made the house double the size, but maybe it was how it was determined, maybe the basement. Why did that go up so much since in the deferral? Perhaps
yeah,
like
good question. Yeah, the reason is right now is not like before the bylaw change. Right now, the GFA calculation is based on the lot area behind the top of the slope. It means based on the land that you have, the GFI is much less than the approved application in before. But because of the new bylaw, it wants us to have the calculation of the lot area up to the top of the bench. So almost half of the lot is considered as a lot area.
Okay, I understand. So the fact is, the previous interpretation back in the was over the entire lot, and now they just on the stable top, which is obviously a smaller area. Okay.
Exactly.
Members, any questions for the agent, Mr. Hidari, or we'll hear from Mr. Scholes just on the matter of the deferral. Okay, so let's hear from Andy Scholes.
One moment, Mr. Chair. All right, go ahead, Andy.
Good morning. Nice cottage, Mr. Chair. See the trees over your shoulder there. The LBNA agrees with the decision to defer the application to a later date. I was here for the December hearing, which resulted in this deferral. I note that there have been some minor changes that are improvements, I admit, but the number of variances are still in the double digits. We hope the applicant will take the time to look at the design again and eliminate as many of these variances as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there certainly are a lot of Good to hear your voice again. You and your confrères, your colleagues at the LBNA, we haven't seen you guys lately. I was concerned that maybe you had, I don't know, weren't around it.
Got a lot of fish to fry.
Okay, good to hear you back, Mr. Scholes. So we'll see you here again when this matter actually gets dealt with on the merits. These things are clarified, and I echo your comments that they should try to maybe reduce those variances. There certainly are a lot of them. And the question is whether it's just a factor of the interpretation of the lot size that's triggering these variances and make them look so dramatic, including like the length. It's 7 meters more than, is that what's before that? So I think the members will be interested in seeing how that relates when this matter, just to let Mr. Hideri know, when this matter comes back. It would be nice to see how that matter is presented to us. Okay.
It is a lakefront property, and they seem to have trouble calculating the FSI, but I mean, the city did it both times, so I don't understand that either.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so members, any questions, or is someone ready to make a motion to have this matter deferred?
I'll move for deferral so that the applicant can process with planning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kamerick. Seconder for that. Mr. Taylor, thank you. Ms. McCluskey, were you able to say something, or do you have a question? No. Okay. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. The matter is deferred. We'll see you here again. One last or two last, because they're companion applications, deferrals, and then we'll take a break and come back and start dealing with matters on the merits. And that is, we have units 18 and 19, 155 Lakeshore Drive and 765 Browns Line. Both matters were deferred to the June 30th hearing. And this is to convert storage space into one additional dwelling unit. Hold on. Yeah, convert storage space into one additional dwelling unit for a total of 33 dwelling units. That's for no, Lakeshore. Sorry. And Browns Line to legalize and maintain two additional dwelling units with an existing building for a total of 26. The speaker on this application is Josie Tavares, and we've received in the additional materials a request to defer. So I won't bother reading out all of the other things we have here. We have planning report. They wanted to allow city to secure the works as a condition of approval. We have transportation conditions of approval, 6 variances. We're looking, it was like a technical error in the Browns Line. So now we do have a request to have these matters deferred. So let's hear from Josie Tavares.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So yes, I'm requesting a deferral, and this is just due to the improper length of time for the signs on site. We just had some vacations, and sadly, they weren't posted properly. And we obviously do want to make sure that the public has the appropriate amount of notice so that they can attend should they wish to speak on it. So this is certainly our fault. We'll take full onus on this, and I do apologize.
Okay, so we certainly see you here again. So because the sign, as you say, is important, and you have to sign a declaration that's been up for, so we need things to be done properly. And there's, I guess, we'll see you back here again. Members, any questions for Ms. Tavares, or is someone ready for a motion?
Just wanted to make a footnote that, again, transportation is asking for the applicant to look at 5 conditions, and perhaps that can be addressed prior to it coming back if we're deferring anyway.
Sure.
Okay, so looking for that deferral motion on both files, which were previously deferred.
January 30th. While I've got my mic open, sorry, I'll move for deferral for both items so that proper notice can be posted.
Okay, and that was from June 30, 2022, not 2023. Is that correct, Ms. Tavares?
We were just here in June of 2023, actually.
Oh, an error then on our notice. It was from June 23, not 2022. But that can be noted, I guess. Maybe that was just on my on our results list. Maybe it was correct.
Could be. It wasn't original. What we had come then, and we were working with planning staff, so maybe they just do the original deferral date. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's just a typo on a results list because I'm looking on the bookmark. It actually says 2023, and we have up on board the 2023 notice here in our package. Okay, so can I have a motion to defer, please?
I'll second. I believe Stan put forward the first motion.
Okay, Stan. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. We'll see you here again, Ms. Tavares. Have a great day.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, we just have one more, item 21, because there's a dedication required that hasn't been shown on the information.
Okay, I didn't have that one. So this was consent to sever the property, to demolish the property and build 2 new homes. So here's the reason we have a lot of them before us. So what's missing on this? We do have urban forestry requesting deferral, refusal. So what are we missing here?
So engineering and construction services is
Madam
requesting
Secretary-Treasurer,
a dedication. And the plans haven't been modified to reflect that, and it will affect the variances.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring to your attention the area resident is not present on the call at this time.
Okay.
I stand corrected. I think that might be a phone call user actually that signed in late.
647-685 number.
That's the one I think,
So
yeah.
let's hear from Dan Barry first. Okay, let's hear from Mr. Barry first on the issue of the deferral.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Dan Barry, 35 McDonald Street, Vulcan Design.
Yeah, can you speak a little louder? You sound like you're at a phone booth.
May do. Is this better?
A little better, yeah.
Okay. Dan Barry, agent on the application, 35 McDonald Street, Vulcan Design. We were just informed yesterday at 3 p.m. by planning staff that engineering is requiring a 0.4 meter reserve across the front of these lots for Evans Avenue future road widening. The issue is that area is going to be deducted from our lot area, and this is going to change probably half of our variances. So the variances before us right now are going to be incorrect.
Okay. Yeah.
And planning is asking if we could have the surveyor update the R plan, provide, the new lot calculations, then we'll have to go back, get a new zoning review, get updated variances, and kind of come back to planning with that at a future date.
Okay. Right. So because of that, all the variances are going to change, and I assume you're going to bring that to the attention of the members at the time that really it's only because you're doing this dedication that they're getting smaller. And without the dedication, I see forestry also, forestry is looking to, they are opposed and looking for a refusal of variances 1, 3, and 8, or in the alternative to do urban forestry condition number 1. So perhaps you can deal with that at the same time.
Correct. Agreed.
Okay. And there is no one else on the line. So does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chair,
for,
Mr. Chair, I do want to confirm that the one call-in user I do have on the line is in fact the area resident. They weren't here during the microphone check, so I wasn't able to confirm at the time. But maybe we can right now real quick.
Okay, so it's Margaret Weldon. So perhaps we can just touch base with Margaret before we have this matter voted on.
Okay.
Is she on the line?
Quick microphone check for call-in user 647-685. Is this Margaret?
Silly Billy.
Yes, we can. Is this Margaret?
No, it's not. Hello.
Hello.
No. Hi, Adam. Oh, Adam, I think you've muted the wrong person.
Margaret Weldon or no?
Here we go, Mr. Chair. Microphone check for Margaret Weldon. Margaret,
I'm
go.
not here for this matter. It's okay.
I am here, but I'm not here for this matter. I'm just observing participation for a different matter, but I'm not here for this particular matter. There is somebody else on the line who is here for it.
You're not.
Sorry, can the call-in user at 647-685 identify themselves with their full name?
It is Margaret Weldon, yes, but I'm not here for the matter that you're discussing. I'm just observing the proceedings for a matter that's coming up on your screen. I'm not due to speak or anything, but there is somebody else on the line who keeps calling you that is here to speak on it. I'm not sure who that is, though.
Margaret, if you'd be interested to watch the stream on YouTube, it is live stream there, and you can log off the WebEx and you can watch on the City of Toronto's YouTube page, and the live stream is there.
Okay, very well.
Okay, so you don't, but you live next door to this property at number 21, or just coincidentally, or that's not your address?
No, that's not my address at all.
Okay. You're not at 487 Evans Avenue. You're here on something else, so that's what it is. Okay. Okay, members. So we just heard from Mr. Barry. We hear this obviously matter has to be deferred. There's no question. The variances will change with the dedication. So can I have a motion to defer?
I'll move a motion to defer this matter to provide the updated variance request. I just want to note as well that Heritage has made a request for an archaeological assessment.
Yes. Thanks for good point. Just to let the applicant be aware of that. Okay. So is anyone ready to make that motion of deferral, or is?
I made the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so made by Ms. Reddick, seconded by Mr. Merrick. All in favor, matter is deferred. And we have now, it is
sorry, Mr. Chair, we never did officially defer or not defer item number 6, 103 Wyndale. We lost connection with the agent in the moment. We have since reconnected with them.
Oh, right. Holding that one, right. Do you have the agent back for number 6?
Yes, and actually the agent speaking to the file will be Sarah Mahadi.
Okay, so it won't be the speaker noted on my speaker list, but it will be that. It won't be Sajidul Islam, who we couldn't find. So I had introduced this matter. It's the second-story addition above the existing dwelling with 7, and we need an automatic deferral because there's an additional variance for length. So we need to have re-notification, and we do have a letter. Perhaps before it comes on, we should obtain that address to find out the vicinity of that neighbor. Afternoon, good morning. The speaker for this matter is?
Good morning, this is Sarah Mahadi.
Okay, hello, Sarah. So this matter, we lost connection with you earlier. This matter has to be deferred. Is there anything you'd like to advise the committee members of before they vote on that? So we're missing a variance and we have to come back, obviously.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So members, motion to defer, please, on item number 6, 103 Wyndale.
Mr. Chair, I'll
Yes.
make a motion, but I'd like to ask staff a question. The title of the planning department item on this is automatic deferral to August 17th. Are we prepared to commit to that date or just defer it sine die?
I'd have to check that, so we can do next available hearing date, and then if we've rescheduled it already, then it'll be fine.
Okay. I'll move deferral to enable the inclusion of the missing variance to the next available hearing date.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. McCluskey. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. We'll see you back here again. Okay, before we go back and circle back to deal with those applications on the merits, the other half of our agenda that hasn't been deferred, I think it's appropriate we take a 15-minute break and return at 10 hours to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Everyone here? Okay.
Mr. Chair, we're just waiting for one more member to come back to the chambers and we'll be good to go. Oops. All right, Mr. Chair, we have everyone in the chambers, so if you'd like to get ready and start, we can. Mr. Chair, you muted.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm unmuted now.
We can hear you, Mr.
Am I
Chair.
unmuted
Yep.
now?
Yep.
You can hear me?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we can hear you.
Hello? Okay, it's very low on my end. I have my volume up all the way. Okay. So item number 3, we have a separate tab on our in our materials, which I unfortunately didn't save on my desktop, so I'm going to have to read from my notes. This is to permit the multi-use development project that will consist of 4 new buildings, 2 in phase 1 and 2 in phase 2. We have 8 variances, 7 and 8 have been revised. We have a revised application and showing the highlighted changes. We have an applicant's presentation, and we have an engineering report and transportation study. Planning has given us a report for information. Transportation has 8 conditions of approval. We have an arborist report, and we have a memo from the Toronto Housing Secretariat and support from the Toronto Housing Secretariat and from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And the speaker on this application is, we have 2, Ingrid Beausoleil representing the owners, as well as the applicant available online for questions. So we don't have, this is not an opposed, we don't have anyone speaking in opposition. So let's hear from Ingrid Beausoleil.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of committee. Can you hear me?
Is everyone having, I'm having some problems with I'm really, really faint. I don't know why.
Ingrid, you're loud and clear in the council chambers.
Okay, wonderful. Mr. Chair, should we wait for you or are you okay to proceed?
Yeah, I can hear very, I'm going to hold my phone to my ear so I can hear.
Okay. All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you for your time. I'm Ingrid Beausoleil with KingSett Capital, and I'm here this morning to answer any questions that you may have with respect to the variances before you today. Before we begin, I just wanted to emphasize the importance of these variances. This is a very important project for KingSett. These variances will allow the delivery of 172 affordable rental dwelling units. And as the chair pointed out at the beginning of the meeting, we have some communications on this file, a letter of support from the CMHC, a letter of support from the Housing Secretariat, and as well, we have support from City Planning and City Transportation Services. Next slide, please. Just a brief overview of KingSett's Affordable Housing Fund. We have raised $180 million since the fund was first created in August 2020 and have over 600 units in the pipeline, 172 of which are proposed on this property. Next slide, please. Just a brief overview of the development timeline and the location of the subject property, which is at the northwest corner of the East Mall and Bloor. The original rezoning application was adopted by City Council in October 2020. And on July 14th, 2021, City Council approved the application to deliver 172 affordable rental dwelling units through the city's open door program. Since this time, we've been working diligently on site plan approval and obtaining permits, and have had several ongoing meetings with city staff to advance this project. This has led to the variances before you today, as the project has been refined over the course of time, dealing with cost pressures related to construction costs, interest rate increases, etc. And with these variances, this project can proceed to construction this fall. Next slide, please. These are just some high-level facts with regards to the affordable rental dwelling units proposed on this property. Just for the committee's benefit, when we speak about affordable housing, these rental rates are set by the CMHC annually. And on this slide, it just shows you the third bullet down what the current CMHC rents are that would be applicable to this property. Next slide, please. This is just an overview and summary of variances 1 through 8. Next slide, please. And here's the same list of variances, and based on a review undertaken by city staff, city planning, and transportation services, support is provided for each of the variances. We are in support of staff's comments and the conditions proposed by transportation services. Just two things that I would like to mention, two technical requests, if you will. We ask that if the committee approve these variances, we ask that the revised diagram 3, reflecting the increase in height to the mid-rise building, be attached to the decision. And as well as noted on slide 21, which is it's at the end of the deck, and we can go there if you wish. But essentially, through the review by the building department, they've asked for some refinements to the wording to variances 7 and 8, which are highly technical and relate to the accessible parking spaces. They have asked that the accessible parking spaces be broken down by use. I just want to clarify that the notice that was given to the public provided the same variance request. The total number of accessible parking spaces were identified. The only change here is the request by buildings that the total accessible parking spaces be broken down by use. The remainder of the slide deck provides a more detailed summary of the variances being sought, and being mindful of the committee's time, I would be happy to discuss in detail if you would like and answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, so we do have the revised variances 7 and 8 wording, which is highlighted. So members, any questions for Ms. Beausoleil? We do not have anyone else speaking on this application.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Just was curious to know what the non-residential use is other than the community use, and why no parking can be provided for it.
So we have a community agency space, which is secured as part of the Section 37 benefit. 2 parking spaces are allocated for that use in accordance with the agreement with the City of Toronto. And the remainder of the space is small scale ancillary retail. It will occupy the ground floor of the mid-rise building abutting the East Mall and Bloor Street. And given the ancillary nature of this retail and the city's current parking bylaw, we are not proposing to provide any parking for those spaces, essentially given the ancillary nature of them. It's expected that the local neighborhood will use this retail and the residents of the future buildings.
I just have a very quick question. You may have mentioned this already, but just what's the status of the SPA right now?
The site plan application has been submitted to the city for both phases. The first phase is the one that which we are pursuing diligently at this point, and we are looking to secure NOAC by the end of August, early September, so that we can get back underway with construction this fall.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? And if no questions, is anyone ready for a motion? Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I see this as an interesting and good response to 2 realities facing the real estate industry in Toronto and beyond. One being the reality that office space is no longer as needed as it once was pre-pandemic. And the other is we face a housing crisis, both for the missing middle and at the affordable end. So I think this project contributes to and reflects those issues, does it in a nice way. And I'm content that the variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. And I move approval subject to the Transportation Services Department conditions.
Okay, yeah, there's 8 conditions attached to that. Seconder for Mr. Taylor.
Sorry, the applicant had requested that it be tied to the revised diagram 3, if we want to also include that as a tie to.
Okay, I would gladly add that to my motion.
Thank you.
Okay. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you and best of luck with the project. Thank you, Ms. Beausoleil. And to Mr. Larson listening in. Okay, our next application is item number 488 Yorkview Drive. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage with 5 variances. We have Urban Forestry looking for a refusal. And when I looked at, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, with respect to the parking width, which is from 3.2 permitted to 3.3 meters permitted to protect the skinny little tree. Transportation's okay. And the speaker for this application is Antonella Wild. Welcome. So it looks like 0.1 of a meter is leading our urban forestry department to request refusal. So I don't understand that.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Oh, good morning. It's still morning. Yes, hi. I was a little surprised by the request for refusal myself, and we're happy to remove that variance. I know it is super minor, but they have a process to go through. I respect that, and I don't want to appear, before the committee with anyone's request for refusal or objection from any city department. So it is minor. It makes no impact on the proposal or the family's ability to park or anything like that. So it is not relevant, to
you're asking So are you saying you're withdrawing variance number 5 for the 0.1 of a meter as opposed to leaving?
I am. Well,
Okay.
why not? I guess was my point. I mean, I really was surprised that it was requested to be denied, but at the same time, honestly, I would have just removed it myself, but it takes time and the volume of work in the zoning department. I didn't want to take that time out of that.
Yeah, well, we had a seminar from Urban Forestry, and they told us, obviously, if the as of right condition could affect the tree, then they have it's only the incremental amount. So it's hard to believe an incremental amount of 0.01 of a meter can affect this tree. So I would just leave it the way it is, because you're saying it's going to need more things to remove that variance because your plans would have to be revised. So that's just my opinion on 0.1 of a meter affecting this skinny little tree. And if not, the skinny little stone can be replaced, but I don't think it's going to affect it.
Okay, that's fine. That
would affect it even if you were 3.2 meters away, right? The extra
I
1
agree,
meter.
of course.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone have any questions, I guess, on the other variances or any concerns on this application, or is someone ready for a motion? No.
I'm good to go with the motion. I believe the application meets the 4 tests, and I'm satisfied that it's desirable and would like to move approval subject to, I'm going to say subject to forestry condition 1, which is the city tree.
Okay. Seconded for Mr. Komarik's motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? Okay, the application is approved. Thank you, Ms. Wild. Okay, so our next application is item 5, 33 12th Street. And this is to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage with 6 variances. It says we have a revised site plan. We don't have any changes, looks to the variances. There's a cover letter from Trevor Grain. There's planning has a report for information. Transportation is okay. Yeah, they are okay. No, they have conditions of approval. 1 and 2 to make the following notations on the revised site plan. And then we have the memo from Urban Forestry, and again, looking for refusal here due to the driveway width. In this case, the driveway width is 0.48 or half a meter more than is permitted. And again, they're requesting refusal due to a city-owned bylaw protected tree number 1. So we can perhaps hear about that from the agent. It's half a meter, not 0.1 of a meter in this application. The speaker is Trevor Gain.
Mr. Chair and members, Trevor's asked to be on video. So Trevor, I've made you a panelist now. You're able to start your video by clicking the start video button. And I'll go ahead and unmute you as well.
Correct. I do not have a video capability, so I'll just remain on the phone if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. It's Trevor Gain. I'm the agent and applicant here on behalf of the owners. Right off the bat, I will suggest, or I'm going to recommend, we're going to remove 2 variances from our list, which is resulting from that revised site plan and just some back and forth with zoning. So we're going to remove variance number 2, which is the front yard setback. Just to confirm, you can hear me, correct?
Yep.
Yep, okay. And we're going to remove variance number 6, which is dealing with a outlet in the garage for electrical vehicle charging. So I've never ran into that variance before. Usually we just add that note at the building permit stage. So it's really not a variance that is needed. It's kind of standard procedure. So the revised site plan was basically, it was kind of an interpretation of what's the front wall between the zoning examiner and myself. I lost, and he added like 4 inches to our building length. So it was just easy enough to push the whole house back so our front yard complies. So variance number 2 is removed and variance number 6, and will remain with the following, the remaining 4 variances.
Okay, so I'm just looking at item 6. I haven't seen this either, Mr. Gain. A parking space must be equipped with an energized outlet capable of providing level 2 charging or higher to the parking space. In this case, no energized outlet is proposed. So you're going to be adding an outlet. So is this something new under the bylaw that we're going to see? That every parking spot is required to have a level 2 charging?
I'm as puzzled as you, because I know it was brought in a while ago, but like I said, it's always just kind of a note we add during the building permit stage during OBC review. But it was added as a zoning, so I can't comment if it would be picked up on further applications, as it's the first time I've ever ran across it myself.
Okay.
So it's not really, there's no intent not to have that, so it's kind of just a silly variance.
Right.
So we added it to our site plan, thus
Deleting
transportation.
Right, and you're deleting variance to the front lot line setback.
That's correct. Yeah, we just pushed the whole house back, so we now comply.
Okay. So, members, any questions for Mr. Gain?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I'll just speak to about urban forestry's comment.
Oh, sure, for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so our proposal, we have a 1.5 car garage.
The last application, 5.1, so.
Yeah, I'll just explain it. So in our application, we have a 1.5 car garage, and zoning only recognizes either a single car driveway garage or a double. So there's no in between, thus the variance. And if I can get my site plan up on the screen, the widened driveway is pretty much in front of the garage, so the paved area occupies the whole width of the door. And then as it proceeds towards the property line, it starts to narrow and would clear that tree. So I'm not with forestry if they perhaps didn't see this, or if they just assumed that we had the wide driveway going all the way to the street. But once we cross our property line, we're pretty much in an as-of-right 3-meter wide driveway strip. And we are encroaching in the tree protection zone, which is just so that the driveway aligns with the garage door. We have an arborist report, standard procedure, hand dig, maybe some air spading, stuff like that. So I don't think it's as bad as forestry. Forestry just might be saying it's all or nothing, but I think there's ways around this. Maybe we just decrease the driveway a little bit more. Maybe we offset it some more. So it'll just be some negotiations between forestry and ourselves and our arborist. So I request you do not accept his recommendations and just tie it to the standard forestry approval, and we'll just work with forestry.
Well, you have your condition 1, permission to injure or destroy a city-owned tree.
Yeah, that's correct. And we've already got the application submitted, so it's kind of already sitting there. It's just waiting to be reviewed, et cetera.
Okay.
In this case, it'll be an injury. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, members, any questions for Mr. Gain? I don't see the visual on. And if no questions, if someone's ready to weigh in with a motion. Mr. Taylor or Ms. McCluskey?
Go ahead.
Thanks. I'll move to approve the application. Believe it meets the 4 tests. This is subject to transportation's 2 conditions. And I guess we're adding no forestry condition either. Or would you like to add condition number 1? Okay. Okay. So also condition 1 from urban forestry. Thank you.
I'll second that with a friendly amendment that we're eliminating variances 2 and 6.
Correct. Okay. All in favor? Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Gain. Okay, the next application on our list is item number 7. 6 was deferred. 30 Baywood Road. And this is an application to permit a personal service shop in Unit 16 with an existing mixed-use building, whereas the proposed personal service shop is not a permitted use in an E zone. That is the only variance. We have a previous decision, cover letter. Planning is looking for a refusal or a 2-year approval to provide an opportunity to vacate. With respect to the hair salon, we do have the cover letter. And it looks like this matter, there was a previous decision in June 2004. There was a 5-year approval for this salon to July 2029. We're not sure what happened since then. Maybe perhaps just got from 209 to 2023. I'd like to hear from the agent. Was probably just no one did anything, and it was there. So we'll hear from the agent. The agent on this application is Arlene Beaumont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Arlene Beaumont, Outfit and Associates. We're the agents for the owners of 30 Baywood. I will address the 2004 decision a little bit later in my presentation. I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. First of all, my first point is that this is a very modest hairstyling operation or barber shop. We did send through a floor plan for the unit, and it does show that there is only one sink for doing hair, for washing the hair. That in itself will limit the number of clients that would be served at any one time and the number of stylists that could be working at any one time. The second point I'd like to make is that there are some service uses that are permitted in the E-zone. They include restaurants and small-scale restaurants, banking. And I guess I'd like to make the argument that although people do need to eat and they do need to do their banking, they also need to have their haircut now and again. And I would think it might be quite convenient for some people who work in this employment area to drop by during their lunch or before or after work to have their hair cut. So, you know, it is a service that people working within the employment area could be using. The previous decisions I'd like to just go through. So the one from 2004, Mr. Chair, is actually for an indoor used car sales and leasing showroom in unit number 16. So at some point that use vacated because unit 16 is now occupied by the barber shop. So that use at some point left, and I can't tell you exactly when. There was another variance approved in 2018 for hotel suites in the building, but that has never gone forward. The hotel suites were subject to site plan approval. We did have an initial meeting with city staff to discuss a site plan application, and there were a number of reports that were going to be required. So the property owner just sort of put that on hold. He decided not to go forward. We had our meeting in 2019, and of course in 2020 we all know what happened to the hotel industry. So it was probably a good idea that he didn't go forward at that time. So there are no hotel suites here. And then the third approval is for unit number 17. That was about 8 months ago, December of 2022. Unit 17 is also a personal service type use. So at the present time, there are two personal service uses, number 16 in unit 16, and then also in unit 17. So to wrap up, you know, very small scale. There's great potential for people working in the neighborhood to use this service. I think it's quite legitimate to say that people in the neighborhood will use this service. And there are only two personal service uses in this building.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, okay. My question would be, okay, so it looks like, my apologies, I guess 2004 was the auto use, not ear use or hair salon. It looks like, looks like there's at least 17 units, and maybe there's an upstairs because it says unit 17 and 224. Maybe that's second floor offices were approved personal service tattoo shop in 2022. So I don't know if that's been approved for 5 years or 10 years or 1 year or whatever. But the other thing is, so are there 17 units, or are there more than that number of units in the building?
There's more than that number of units in the building, including like a convention center at the front, which is sort of the largest use in the building. There is an upstairs, there are offices upstairs. So there's more than 17 units in the building, yes.
Okay, the upstairs obviously are not in industrial type. Are they also service type uses or employment uses?
No, they're office type uses.
Okay.
Offices are permitted.
And as you say in your letter, units 1 to 8, so a big chunk is a banquet hall. So that would not correct, that's not permitted as a restaurant. When they permit restaurants and small service uses, I believe it's to serve the people working in the area, not banquet hall. Like you allowed a little snack bar for people to go and have lunch that work in the employment zone. So I assume that doesn't comply either.
I can't give you any history. That use has been there for many, many years, and I don't have any history on that.
Right, but I'm saying it's not an employment use, or at least I wouldn't consider it to be an employment use, or a permitted small ancillary service shop for the people working in the employment zone. That's all I'm saying. So, okay, members, any questions for Ms. Beaumont, or any comment, or is someone ready for a motion?
I have a couple of quick questions if I could. I'm just looking at a Google Street View, and it's showing me a barber shop and then Olivia Beauty Room and the doorway in between. I'm assuming the doorway in between goes to the office level up above. So there's two essentially. Is there still two hair-related businesses in this mall or in this building?
Yes.
Okay.
One is a beauty shop and one is a barber shop.
Okay, and I'm assuming the barber shop has the same restrictions or has to go through the same hoops that you've gone through. Just a
the barber shop. This is what I'm here for. Is the barber shop in Unit 16 is an existing barber shop in Unit 16. That's what I'm here for.
So you're here for the barber shop, not for the beauty salon.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because I wasn't sure which one it was. Okay, and
okay, it's a tattoo shop, correct? It says in your cover letter.
Yes. Yes.
And it said approved. So was there a committee of adjustment hearing on that? Is there a
yes,
decision?
there was in December 8th, 2022.
Sorry, so the so-called beauty room is not a hair business, it's a tattoo shop?
A tattoo. Yes, I guess so. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what goes on in there, but yes, it could be tattoos and other kind of beauty services.
Okay, so it's not two hair-related businesses, one next to the other.
No.
No, okay. No. And there's a recommendation from planning to put a 2-year limit. Would that be a hardship on you?
We would prefer 5.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. That's fine.
2.
Thank you.
Community planning's memo was 2 years to give them an opportunity to vacate. So it was indication, not like a rolling 5-year where they're going to come back in 5 years. So community planning is against this use.
I see. So it's not an
we don't know the tattoo use. It hasn't been shown up in the, I don't know if Ms. Beaumont's the one who gave us the 2 previous decisions or staff pulled that out, but we don't know if there's a actual committee of adjustment. I can't remember. Maybe we did it back in 2022. Is there a decision on for permitting either for time limited or permanent for that tattoo shop in Unit 17?
It's expiring 2026.
Okay, so it was time limited because Ms. Beaumont's letter said it was approved in 2022, so it was probably like a 4 or 5 year approval, I would assume. Ms. Beaumont,
I have it here. I believe it was a 5-year approval.
Okay. Okay, members, questions or motion? My view would be that maybe permanent without a time limit of 5 or 10, maybe not 2, is a mistake, because perhaps in the future the city wants to see this building converted, when the banquet hall ever leaves, to perhaps more of an employment type use. The city tends to be protective of, and they don't want uses that conflict with perhaps other general uses, but we've seen in the past where almost the entire plaza is comprised of that, and we've approved on that basis in the past. So the question here: 2 years to vacate, 5 years for sort of limited or reasonable period of time, or permanent approval, which I think would be overreaching. So that's my opinion. I'll wait for a motion.
My inclination is to approve it. I think it's a question of what the timeline is. My rationale for that, Mr. Chair, is that it's limited on one side by the staircase and on the other side by an existing occupied use. That's a very small footprint. I don't know of any industrial application that would work in such a small space, and for that reason, I'd be inclined to do the approval. But that's kind of where my mind is at, although I'm not sure what the appropriate timeline is.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Through you, and I guess just for our information, the application that we approved in December 2022 appears to have been for a 3-year term. It would have been early 23 to April 26.
Okay.
I'm going to guess that that might be the term that of the lease at the time. So it was 3.5, almost 4 years. Maybe that's when the lease expired for those uses.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a proposed lease for the applicant, Ms. Beaumont?
I'm sorry, I don't know the terms of the lease. I don't have that in front of me.
So the applicant has requested 5 years in the absence of that information as a minimum.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sorry, can I ask one question? How long has the existing barber shop been there for? And you may have mentioned this. I'm just trying to consider all aspects.
Don't know that. It has been there for some time because you can see it on Google Maps. I would say at least a year.
Okay, thanks.
So everyone knows what we're discussing. Yeah, the 2 years I would think would be a minimum for them to relocate, but I'm not sure if the 5 years makes sense or not, and that's sort of where it would be helpful to know what their lease was. But I mean, in the absence of that information, I'd be inclined to go with the 5 years.
Okay, so is that your motion?
I'll move the motion then, yeah. Approving it for a time limit of 5 years.
Thank you. And usually that goes from today.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, end up to second that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval, Ms. Beaumont, for 5-year approval. Okay, next application on the list is item number 8, 12 Bernice Avenue. This is an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There's only one variance, a floor space index of, as noted, and what we have is a cover letter with photos, an area map, and a lot of support from area neighbors. Urban Forestry looking for condition number 1. And the speaker on this application, I believe there's only one, is Marco Razzolini, the agent for the applicant.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Okay, good morning. So you're building a new house with only one variance?
Yes.
Okay. Looks like you have a lot of support, and I assume you're okay with urban forestry condition number 1.
Yep, we've seen that and we're okay with it.
Okay, so I don't think we need a presentation. Members, any questions for the agent? And if no such questions for Mr. Rossellini, is someone ready for a motion?
Motion to approve this application, find it to be minor in nature and consistent with the 4 tests, subject to forestry condition number 1.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Pesky, all in favor? Okay, unanimous approval. The application is approved. Okay. Our next application is item number 9. It is 3425 Lakeshore Boulevard West. It's an application to construct a new 2-story mixed-use building with 8 variances. We have a revised zoning notice. I don't think we have it highlighted, but we have supporting materials, transportation. I see planning has conditions of approval. We have a, read my writing here, we have a report here. Transportation has, well, we have, what's the traders? The transportation, there's
They're
all
actually
kinds of
asking for
reports.
deferral. I know we had
Yeah.
so many of those already, but transportation's report, I believe, is asking for deferral.
They submitted a second report
Yeah.
in your additional materials. They're okay with
Yeah.
it.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Yeah. It says revised site plan indicating some of the driveway width is requested by transportation. They had a parking study, a planning rationale, a revised transportation memo dated August 1st where they're okay. 2 letters of opposition from 3405 and 3446. And we do have support and urban forest. No, that's number 10. Sorry. I was reading number 10. But we have a technical memo been provided and an engineering report on this. And there are a 12-page planning justification with attachments. Okay. The speaker on this application is Kristen Chan, the agent. And as well, we have registered to speak, subject to Adam confirming, Tim Dobson from 3446 Lakeshore. That was one of the letters that was written. And he's the chair of the Lakeshore Planning Council.
Mr. Chair, members,
So let's
Tim is present on the call at this time.
Okay, thank you. So Christian Chan will start off with the agent, and we'd like a presentation on this application.
Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Christian Chen. I'm the planner and agent for the applicant. My address is 157 Adelaide Street, West Toronto.
Okay, and I think we actually, so Long Branch actually was looking for, Stephen Vella wrote in a letter from Long Branch, and they were looking for, they agreed with transportation's deferral request, but transportation is now satisfied. They see it as a positive step for Long Branch, adding housing units and density where is planned. Okay, so the parking, he had concerns for parking, but transportation is now okay with parking. Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Chan. Welcome,
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So we've had extensive conversations with planning staff even prior to the Committee of Adjustment application, in which we made sure to secure the 2-meter landscaping strip on the rear of the property. So that addresses, that was one of the variances that popped up before we made the submission. And of course, as reflected in the planning staff report, that the landscaping strip is going to be secured through the 2 conditions that they're requesting, one being a financial security and the other being a landscape plan should the application be approved. We also had extensive discussions with Transportation Services pursuant to their July 21 report in addressing their concerns. We provided Tedesco Engineering's parking review, of which Transportation Services agreed with, and of course, with their subsequent memorandum of August 1st, recommended the approval of the parking variances. So just to go into the description of the proposal, it's for a 2-story mixed-use building. There's commercial at grade and then 2 family-sized units above. The existing site is a 25-foot frontage, so it's a very small frontage and the lot depth of about 35 meters. So this lot's smaller than many of the residential lots immediately to the south in Long Branch. Just to note also that there's an easement that's shared with 2433 immediately to the east to allow vehicular access. There's also a parking sharing agreement with 3423 to the east, in that portions of their lot are able to be used as parking by the users of the subject site. This is contained in one of the attachments to the Tedesco Engineering report. The site is designated as mixed-use areas. It's on a higher order transit corridor on the enhanced surface transit network, and it's zoned as commercial avenues under the former Etobicoke zoning code. So with respect to the variances, we are seeking a variance for reduced rear yard setback, and I note that it is common for development to have rear yard setbacks that are less than the required 7.5 meters. In my opinion, there are no additional impacts to the proposed building footprint to the adjacent residential neighborhood to the south. The proposed built form provides appropriate transition, and it's a 2-story low-rise building. Also, just to note, the Committee of Adjustment has approved reductions in rear yard setbacks on this block as well, 3563, 3567. The second built form variance is the penetration of the angular plane. This can be seen on the PDF page 7, drawing A105 of the architectural plans. That's the east elevation. So the small penetration of the angular plane, in my opinion, will have no impact on the southerly residential neighborhood and provides still an effective transition to low-rise development in the south. This was also discussed with community planning's manager for the area prior to submissions, of which they cited no concerns. The other variance with respect to entrances, the main entrance is the second story dwelling unit is access from the south driveway, as we can see on this elevation on the screen. Again, this driveway has the right-of-way easement that permits mutual access for 3423 and 3425. With respect to the parking variances, for the minimum driveway width, Transportation Services staff has no concerns with this driveway width. It's the existing driveway width between the buildings. Again, there's an agreement for right-of-way pedestrian access and vehicular access in common. The Tedesco report also shows on page 17 that there's a swept path diagram that was requested by Transportation Services staff that illustrates how a vehicle can safely maneuver into and out of the proposed parking space forward in and then forward out of the property. With respect to the visitor parking space, there's an abundance of off-site parking available in the vicinity of the subject site. And Michael Tedesco is confident that any residential visitor-generated parking demand can be readily accommodated and will not negatively impact any parking demand and supply balance. With no parking spaces provided for the restaurant that's proposed on the main floor, Transportation Services has accepted the proposal for no parking spaces for the restaurant. And the Transportation Services also notes that a reduction in commercial parking would encourage persons to walk, cycle, and transit, which would ultimately contribute to more active and healthy communities. With respect to the handicapped accessible parking space will not be provided. And the Tedesco report concludes that considering that the requirement would be nil if between 0 and 9 spaces are required, and that a case has been made for no parking to be required for the restaurant, then it follows that the handicapped automobile parking space requirement should be 0. With respect to the one residential parking space deficiency, this is noting that bylaw 89/2022 that amended the parking space rates, that there was an elimination of minimum residential parking requirements for this type of development. So if bylaw 89/2022 applied, the requirement for residential parking would be 0, and that the engineering report also concludes that it's unlikely that a negative impact from too few parking spaces will arise based on the analysis of Transportation Tomorrow survey data. And speaking to minor, the proposed rear building setback and penetration in the angular plane is both minor numerically and in terms of impact. There are no variances required for the building height, which is permitted to be up to 6 stories or 20 meters.
Mr.
The
Chair,
proposed
the
building is
agent has
almost half
spoken
the
over
height.
the 5 minutes.
I'd just like to conclude with respect to the conditions. I note that there's urban forestry condition number 2, which is acceptable to my client as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And commend you. Actually, the Tedesco report, 12 pages plus attachments, is very comprehensive and very good. So, and you drew much of your presentation from that. So we do have another speaker. Before we go to the other speaker, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Chan this time? Okay, if not, let's hear from Tim Dobson of 3446 Lakeshore. And it says he's the chair of the Lakeshore Planning Council.
Muted here. I've actually got 2 addresses, 3446 as Lakeshore Planning Council and also 3448. Lakeshore Boulevard West, Dobson Design Decisions. I'm a registered landscape architect, arborist, green roof professional, and planner as well. So in reviewing this application, although it does get fairly close to being a beneficial addition to the street, my concerns that I've outlined in my submission deal with the rear setback, requesting that it be slightly reduced to be maintained within the angular plane, and also provide a bit more landscape buffer at the rear. The 2-meter landscape allowance may be a bit tight, but it also facilitates the possibility of putting in some vertical screen like columnar trees within that landscape space to provide a more appropriate buffer for the abutting ash crescent residential spaces. And also, if it was a raised landscape space, that would prevent the inevitable damage from vehicles going in and out, and especially snow dumping, which has not been accommodated for in this plan at all, like where they're planning to deposit snow clearing for either the drive or the parking space, which inevitably ends up damaging any sort of landscape space. Secondly, the angular plane provision allows, as you've seen in my submission as an example on Queensway West near just east of Islington, where additional stories could be added for more density, maintaining within the angular plane. And this would be an opportunity to go, even though it's a 25-foot lot, to go above to add up to the 6-story as of right permission, and actually be a more appropriate intensification for an avenue versus a 2-story addition. So similar to the comments from Long Branch Neighborhood Association, 2-story versus like a 6-story, it's underwhelming in terms of density in the housing addition. Another aspect is the blank wall that is, I believe, on the west facade. And this may be deliberate because it may end up being a party wall with the next door property if it was to be redeveloped. But I believe completely blank walls without window relief or things of that sort is against the urban design guidelines for the City of Toronto. And that could be mitigated with some simple additions of vine coverage, which would help to at least filter or mitigate that aspect. So in essence, that's my summary. The materials that are not listed, just graphically, it looks like it's perhaps cement board or vinyl siding on the side. I'm hoping it's not vinyl siding, and on the front It appears to be brick, which is probably fine, but perhaps the applicant can enlighten as to what those materials are. And then lastly, the addition of a green roof on the top, even if it's a shallow one of sedum, which is very low cost. And that would be in keeping with the City of Toronto's policies for green roof creation on new building construction. And that summarizes my comments.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, you're aware, I don't know if you're aware, I said in the opening, planning has weighed in with a request for 2 conditions of approval on this application. They're in favor of the application, but they share some concerns. So they state in their letter that based on the review, they believe it's minor. They see some opportunities through the application to improve the existing site conditions, and in order to secure that, City Planning is requesting a landscape plan to the direct satisfaction of Director of Community Planning and a financial security to guarantee appropriate landscape works. So I assume Community Planning has some of those concerns. I don't believe the site plan is a public process. So you wouldn't be involved. I guess the applicant would be involved with the City Community Planning to secure those improvements.
Well, the securities are a standard procedure. Letter of credit for the landscape plan and the values, yeah.
Right, the things you're suggesting, perhaps something that community planning will be dealing with through that. I don't know. Perhaps we'll hear back from the agent can enlighten in response to your as a rebuttal to what you've had to say.
But my comments were, especially on the landscape aspect, were more specific because I have a lot of experience at not only reviewing these drawings, but what happens when they get built with even with the planning department recommendation and a security, excuse me, and the landscape still gets damaged after it's built. If you don't have that separation, when you have a very, very tight space, simple things like snow deposit with salt ends up killing everything that's been planted. And so it might last a year and then it disappears. It's just, and then there's the technical, like I know traffic has, I had a second thought and sort of approved, but there's no detail on this plan that shows like the turning radius, like how a vehicle is going to back in and back out. I understand they may have to use the abutting property to be able to actually park and turn around and come back out again. But it appears that the landscape area is going to be easily damaged from any of that vehicular traffic.
Okay, I think we have a pretty Tedesco Engineering 12-page report, I believe, that has some discussions or little drawings about their turning radiuses and things like that when I was perusing it. But in any event, we have that, and like I said, community planning is in there as a condition of approval, is dealing with the landscape aspect. And I certainly echo, we live in Canada here, so whatever you do, once we have salt, and they put copious amount of salts due to insurance requirements because when there's slip and falls, so it's a problem in the in our particular climate.
So a raised landscape area would actually help ameliorate those concerns.
Right.
Both deposit the salt and protection of the landscape from the vehicles.
Thank you. Okay, so members, any questions for the speaker? If not, we'll go back to Mr. Chan for his rebuttal. And perhaps he can us and the speaker about the planned landscape improvements. Okay, Mr. Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I thank Mr. Dobson for his submissions. I certainly appreciate his review of the application and attempt to state some improvements to the property, especially with respect to landscaping strip. And as you previously mentioned, sir, yes, the requirement of a condition of approval by city planning is in fact to secure an acceptable landscape plan to their satisfaction, as well as the financial security. And definitely in our discussions with the city on the landscape plan, we will take serious Mr. Dobson's suggestions into serious account. I do like to note that on the turning analysis, and I have conferred with Mr. Tedesco on this prior to this hearing, that in fact the turning radius for the wheels of a vehicle accessing the parking space will not traverse over the required 2-meter buffer strip. So that is going to be secured. It's definitely going to be a point of discussion with the city to make sure that that does not happen in order to secure that that landscaping strip remains as a landscaping strip. And of course, also that, yes, as you've mentioned, sir, the agreement with the neighbor at 3423, as well as an instrument that is registered with the land registry, enables access of vehicles to both back in and enter into the parking space, traversing over portions, what is known as Part 8 of the adjacent property on the survey. So there will be adequate access for the vehicles in order to protect that landscape buffer. I understand also, sir, that Mr. Dobson suggested that the building is proposed as not enough density. I do note that the Hive on Queensway is a 50-foot lot frontage, double than what we have proposed here existing on the site with a 25-foot frontage. And again, this is a very small site. So the suggestion that a 6-story building could be put on a 25-foot frontage requires, I would suggest, significant architectural input and engineering. And I've never seen an application come before the committee that has failed in a minor variance test because it's not enough density in an area. Certainly an as-of-right development could be of smaller scale and just proceed directly to a building permit. With respect to the blank wall on the west facade, in terms of the material treatment, I believe these are matters that would go before building code review, and materiality is not necessarily something that comes before the committee. However, I do note that the zoning bylaw does provide that a side yard setback with no openings for this zone can be 0 meters along the lot line. And I think, I'm just looking through my notes here, sir, but I think that addresses the comments that Mr. Dobson has provided. So with respect to the angular plane, I understand that the LBNA has also submitted a document that says, you know, there could be development in the future that goes on top of this, and that is not the intent, sir. Just to address that ahead of time. This is a 2-story development that has a minor projection of the angular plane, and I would suggest to you that any increased density or redevelopment of this property in the future would comprise of an assembly of lots that would come under a separate review process, whether by committee of adjustment or a rezoning application, to ensure that any increased density adheres to those angular plane provisions that are required in the bylaw.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes,
so,
sir.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
It is a 2-story mixed-use building, but there was some reference and pictures of a 6-story building with step backs. So I was confused, but I guess they're talking about future development, but we talk about what's before us.
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
So I do know that Mr. Dobson did provide a sketch on top of the east elevation and as part of his submission, suggesting, you know, a six-story building adhering to the angular planes. And of course, that's something that could be proposed in the future, but certainly I would put to you, sir, that on a 25-foot lot, that would be aggressive to construct.
Unless it's an assembly and it's done across a whole bunch of lots. But that's the future, right? What's before us is a 2-story mixed-use building, not a 6-story and we do have a 45-degree plane issue, but you've explained that. Community planning, you're okay with the 2, well, actually okay. I'm thinking of the next application. Okay, so there is there planning conditions of approval here? Yes, the landscape plan and the financial security. So that ties in with that.
Yes,
okay,
sir. And there's an additional condition for urban forestry number 2. With respect to an the adjacent westerly property has a apple tree that urban forestry has considered in poor condition. However, they are still requiring the submission of a permit to injure as resulting from the proposed building footprint.
Correct. Okay. Okay. So, members, any questions either for the agent, or if not for the agent, for the neighbor or the other speaker, or someone ready for a motion? And in addition, yeah. Okay. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied that this proposal meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. And I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 2 and the planning conditions regarding the landscape plan and the posting of financial security. And just as an aside, not a formal part of this motion, but I might suggest that Christian consider consulting Tim on some of his landscaping details, specific ideas. And that would be my motion.
Okay, thank you, sir. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you. Good luck with the project, Mr. Chen. Okay, the next application is item number 10, 27 Blair Athol Crescent. And this is an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There were 8 variants. We have a revised highlighted notice. There were 8 variances. There are still 8 variances, but 5 of those have been revised. It looks like 2 of them have been revised in accordance with community planning's first part of their recommendation is that those 2 variances be reduced, the FSI and the coverage to what they've asked that for. And in addition, he's revised 3 other variances. There are 4 letters of support, urban forestry looking for conditions 2 and 3, and Ravine's looking for urban forestry condition 1, which is a bit confusing. And we'll hear about that. And we have an arborist report and 4 letters of support. The speaker on this application, there is only one, is Michael Taylor, the agent for the applicant.
Yes, good morning, or actually good afternoon.
Yeah.
So I'm Michael Taylor. The address is 245 Davenport Road, Suite 300 in Toronto. I'm the agent for Mike Wallace and Gozia Piastka, and presenting on their behalf. I would like you to open the file revised final plans, July 27th, 2023.
Michael, I know. Michael, I know that
Yeah.
you want to be on video on presenting. Is that still the case?
Yeah. Where is?
Well, I'll go ahead and
I'm
make
not
you.
sure where to
I'll
find
go ahead and make you a panelist now, and so now you should be able to turn your video on by clicking the start video at the bottom of your screen. There we go. I see you.
Okay.
I'll bunch you in here.
I've lost a bit of time here already. I just want to point out that the public hearing notice that was dated July 24th is based on the earlier zoning bylaw notice. So subsequent to that, a final revised zoning notice was issued dated July 26th. And the reason for this is that as a result of conversations we had with the planner assigned to our project, as you said, we agreed to revise 5 of the 8 variances, and then we submitted the revised drawings to the zoning examiner. This diagram just illustrates basically the variances that we're looking for, along with the changes that we made to it. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of these variances for the committee.
Okay. Members, any questions for the agent? And if no such questions, is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'm satisfied that the revised application meets the 4 tests and would like to move approval, subject to Ravine or Forestry Condition 1, Forestry Condition 2 and 3, and subject to the planning conditions with regards to bird-friendly and dark sky lighting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Comeric. We have a seconder for that motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? It's unanimous. You have your approval. Thank you, sir. Application has been approved, subject to the conditions. Okay, the next application Before us is item number 11, 16 Redwater Drive. And this is an application to permit the construction of a north side addition to the proposed detached garage in the rear yard. A previous Committee of Adjustment application approved the detached garage in the rear yard. And we have one variance coverage from 10% permitted to 11.27 proposed. And all we have, we have a cover letter. We have the previous decision from January 2022, a cover letter. Ravines has no concerns. They were advised the shed is to be demolished and to construct a double car garage with a powder room. And the speaker on this application is Jaskaran Singh, owner of the property. Welcome, sir. Jaskaran Singh?
Yes, can you hear me?
Very, very, very faintly.
I'll try to speak a bit more louder. I don't know. I'm trying to have some mic issues over here. But yeah, I mean, just to confirm, if you could hear me, I mean, the proposed structure was already approved, double detached garage. I mean, the drawing's the same from back when it was submitted initially, and it's just that zoning had issued a notice saying that the proposed structure is bigger than 1.27%, as it's mentioned over here, and they requested me to do a COA application for the increase in the area, but nothing, no actual changes have been done as per what the drawing or the drawings were submitted back when the video adjustment was applied, which was in 2021 and last year.
Okay, so yes, you got your approval last year. In this case, you've now made the garage bigger, and so you need a small variance of 1.27. You're allowed 10%. You're going to 11.27%, and you're building a powder room.
Yeah, Mr. Chairperson, just to add to that, not adding any square foot area or not even an inch, basically. So what happened was the drawing that was submitted initially, the statistics column, the lot area, the total permitted area was mentioned wrong as per my architect, which the zoning didn't pick up initially back in the day. And
okay,
yeah,
so they missed it. They missed it.
So they told me to apply again, but not even an inch of space has been added to what was submitted before.
Okay, that's good to know. So basically, you're not doing anything different than you proposed to do in January 2022. It's just that they didn't show it as a variance.
Yeah, nothing, Mr. Chairperson. Yeah, so zoning initially approved, but then they picked it up again later, saying that I have to apply for a COA.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so members, any questions for the homeowner, Mr. Singh, or is someone ready for a motion?
I'll move to approve the application. Believe it meets the 4 tests and, yep, subject to no conditions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McCluskey. Seconder for that motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, sir. You have your variance has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Singh. Okay, item 12 has been deferred, so unit number 13 has been deferred. So we can move over to item number 14, 17 Granville Avenue. We have, this is to construct a 1-story rear addition to the existing building. We have revised notice page for the agenda showing that the one variance has been revised. There was just an error. It's still 0.42%, whereas 50% of the rear yard landscaping is required. But there was just a clarification of the amount. It's 55.65 meters squared, whereas 66.23 is permitted, not 45 square meters, and that is the only variance. And we have an arborist report, site plan, and it's just a soft landscape, and we have support from both adjacent owned neighbors at 15 and 19, and we have supporting material. And the agent appearing on this application is Mr. Sprague, Tom Sprague. Welcome, sir.
Hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Yes, my name's Tom Sprague, Sprague and Company Architects, and our address for the record is 156 Duncan Mill Road. I think briefly you described everything very well. We've had communication with community planning, and based on that input, we've reduced the size of the rear driveway to bring the soft landscaping up to 42%. It was originally 34. And so we're in agreement, and you have the correct numbers you pulled up on the screen. So that's what we would be doing, and planning supportive of that as well. And should also say that it's just for the information is that with the existing driveway that we're cutting back a portion of it, we're actually slightly more soft landscaping percentage than what presently exists. So it's a little better than what exists today. Anyway, we're fine with that, with the way it's been put. And I just feel that, as you mentioned, both neighbors are supportive, and I feel this is a very minor application and, in my opinion, appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sprague. Good to hear your voice. It's been a while. Any questions for Mr. Sprague, or is someone ready for a motion here?
Ready for a motion to approve this application as revised, subject to urban forestry condition number 2, field the application meets the 4 tests.
Okay. Seconded for Ms. Reddick's motion. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval, Mr. Sprague. Be well. And okay, so items, it looks like 15 and 16 have been deferred.
Mr. Chair, the next item would be item number 20.
Great. So we have 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 have all been deferred. So we'll move over to item number 20. Thank you, Adam. Okay. 1197 the Queensway and 8 ZORRA Street. Again, this matter was deferred from the June 8th, 2022 hearing. Is it 2022 or is that another error? Is it 2023? Yeah, the minutes, it's 2023, not 2022. And it was deferred for the purpose of, just see. Yeah, it was a notification issue as the radius used for notice did not include a portion of the lands, so it was deferred. And what we have here is to permit a parking deficiency is the only variance. Yeah, it's a parking deficiency, and they go through the various obstructions and the number of parking spaces that are obstructed and what the nature of those obstructions are. We have the minutes, we have transportation memo on this application. They have no objection, and that was basically it. We have the materials from the previous hearing. So the speaker on this application is Ryan Sankar, the agent. Ryan Sankar, agent for the applicant. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Through you, Mr. Chair, my name is Ryan Sankar, and I'm a senior associate with a transportation engineering and planning firm called BA Group. I'm the applicant's transportation consultant, and I'm here today on their behalf, acting as their agent. Just to clarify, yeah, we were deferred from a June 2023 hearing because of improper notice. So we're back. I won't take up too much time given the requested variance is quite minor in nature and one that's commonly approved in my experience with appropriate technical backing, which we've already submitted. In summary, the 1197 Queensway building is currently under construction, and due to the required introduction of vertical pipes adjacent to a number of parking spaces, 9 spaces to be exact, these spaces have now become technically deficient with respect to bylaw dimensional requirements, meaning that they're technically obstructed. We've reviewed the affected spaces and concluded that these spaces can still function reasonably well, considering vehicle maneuvering requirements to get in and out of the spaces and door opening space requirements. For your information, this analysis was done using the 85th percentile size passenger vehicle, meaning that these obstructed spaces can still accommodate most of the general passenger vehicle fleet. So given the analysis we've done and what we've concluded, we're of the opinion that the variance is appropriate and will not significantly affect the functioning of the building's parking facilities. I'll note that you already have the Transportation Services has reviewed our parking study and agreed with our recommendations as noted in their letter to the committee. And that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Sankar? Okay, and if there's no questions, is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'm good to go. I believe the application meets the 4 tests. It's minor, and would like to move approval subject to no conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kamerick. Seconded for that. Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, sir. We'll see you again. Thank you, Mr. Sankar. Okay, our next application is item 22 A, B, and C, 6 Yvonne Avenue. This matter was deferred from the February 23rd, 2023 hearing. Urban Forestry looking for conditions 1 and 2. This is an application for consent to sever the property into 2 undersized residential lots, each requiring 7 variances to the zoning bylaws set out in B and C. The intent is to demolish the existing dwelling, and on each side of the lot so created as the site of a new detached dwelling, and each requiring those 7 variances. In the minutes, we have an email from the agent confirming that he would like to proceed and schedule the application, notwithstanding that planning has concerns. And then we have an email from planning that they do have concerns, and we'll be following up with the applicant, Mr. Flynn, to discuss. So we also have the minutes from the previous hearing. And that's what we have. So we have before us on the speakers list, Michael Flynn, agent for the applicant, as well as the neighbor at number 4 Yvonne Avenue, either Mr. or Mrs. Or 2 people named the last name Dada. I'm not sure who's going to be speaking.
Mr. Chair and members, the area resident of 4 Yvonne Ave is not present on the call at this time.
Okay, were they on the call this morning, or they've never been on the call?
No, sir, they've never been on the call.
Oh, okay, they're just listed as they pre-registered, I guess, is to speak, but they didn't come forward to do so. They're not present. Okay, so Mr. Flynn, and please touch up. We don't have any report staff from community planning other than the fact that they advising they do have concerns. So perhaps we'll hear from Mr. Flynn on that.
Yes, sir. Good day, Mr. Chairman and members. Michael Flynn, 90 Cordova Avenue, Toronto. This has been somewhat of a challenging application from the perspective of dealing with planning department. You'll note that in the original planning comments, there was a reference to a lot study that has never been provided, either to committee or to me. I specifically asked the city planner for a copy, and he turned me down. So he refused to provide it. But we have gone back and forth for obviously a very long time. We've made revisions, and I would have to say at this point that planning really doesn't have any concerns remaining.
Well, hold on. So, did you make any changes since this matter was last before us in February and was deferred? And remind us what it was deferred for.
Yes. Yes, you'll note that there is a.
Because I see we have on the board, there was a previous, when you were here last time, there was a refusal report from community planning, which is up on the board here.
That is that's their report their report stands.
Okay, did we have a memo saying the report stands? I didn't seem to notice that.
No.
We normally get our report stands. Here they just said, please be advised, we have some concerns. This is dated July 27 from Nicholas Diebler, and we'll be following up with an applicant to discuss. So then I guess normally their application, especially if there's no changes, it's invariably it stands without them actually saying, as they often say, yeah, our application from the previous deferred hearing date still stands. They don't say that here. So Mr. Flynn, your position is that you believe that that report still stands? We can.
No, I don't think it stands. I think. Well, I think we talked it out. We talked it out. I mean, for one thing, this is, in my view, a modest severance application. There are only 7 variances.
Oh, yeah. You did have 8 last time, so what's the variance you dropped? And
height.
Yeah,
we lost a height variance, yes.
You still have several.
We had the side yard, exterior main wall height. We have the total height, but there was, it's so nebulous I can't even remember, but it was nothing of great significance and wouldn't really have an impact on anything or even the application itself. So what we have here is, and now I've lost my notes.
So what did you do what happened? What was the purpose again of the deferral and why? What did you do? And other than dropping that one of the height variances, did any of the
we
other?
did actually defer for the purposes of discussing with planning and for revisions. So we did revise the height, the total height, and the wall height. The interesting thing about this lot is that it falls from the front to the rear. So it creates some difficulty with the actual measurement of the height or the visual impact of the height. But effectively, we've dealt with planning ad nauseum. And we pretty much got to the point where they said, yeah, okay, fine. It had to do with aesthetics and all kinds of other things, but as you can see, there was one written objection from a resident of Minnie Avenue, which is significantly distant from this site, not even on the same street. Forestry has conditions, but Forestry has some interesting comments. And if you read the arborist report that we provided, we are only removing a non-protected dead tree. That's all we're doing. We're not injuring any trees. We're not injuring any protected trees. So I really am lost for understanding for what Forestry has to say on that. Transportation has no concerns and no objections. Also, letter of objection. We have 10 letters of support, which is significant, but could have been much higher because many of the people who are, let's say, not objecting are just didn't want to have to sign a letter. They just were not interested in signing a letter. So we have 10 letters of support, 1 letter of objection, and other people who are not officially anywhere but seem to be in support. So as I said, this is a relatively modest application for a severance. There are 7 variances per minor variance. which is atypical. You often have 11 or more variances per minor variance application for severance. And that's why I would argue that it's a modest.
Why are you say, what did you say? You normally have 7?
We have 7 on each of these 2 applications. Over the years, my experience has been that when you sever property, you're looking at, on average, say 11 minor variances per building. So you get interior sidewall, you get interior setbacks, interior, sorry, I'm repeating myself there. You get height.
You know, every application, I've had people come here for, you know, only have 2 variances. And that leads me, when you finish your presentation, I have some comments to make. And again, you need you to try to work around this planning memo because they said they're going to talk to you. We normally get an email saying, yeah, our report stands. But we didn't get that, but I have trouble discerning how this report doesn't stand because you've only taken a 1 small variance. And if you read their report back when it was here last, they specifically mention the 2 main or primary items, lot frontage and lot area, which they claim is out of character. And the one that has a smaller, they distinguish it away to say that doesn't apply because it's a corner lot or something like that. Where's that? Where's the memo? I'm going to go to the report here.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to scratch my head and understand how this report, even though they haven't said it still applies, I'm reading from the end, bottom page 4. Yes.
Well, that's why I said the.
No. Let me just finish. City planning staff have reviewed the application, supporting materials, and committee of adjustment decisions in the area. Conducted a lot study. They said they've conducted. Said we didn't see it. They said they've done it to assess. Maybe they didn't share it with you to assess the lot pattern of the neighborhood. Based on this review, city planning identified concerns, and then the concerns are no matter what, even if you came with 2 houses to comply, never mind 11 or 7 variances, it says, if approved, the proposed lot frontage of 10.67 would be the smallest with an immediate block. Again, maybe you're going beyond the immediate block, along YVONNE between Haymarket and Jethro. Further, only 1 lot in the broader neighborhood has a lot frontage that measures less, and that lot is located at the corner of Rosalie and Haymarket, and city planning note that it has a much greater frontage along its flankage lot line and has vehicular access. So that is a different context and doesn't apply. So in other words, that one example where it's less doesn't apply to you because it's a different configuration on a flankage street. They're saying that the lot. So I'm just trying to say, how can you tell us, Mr. Flynn, and you're a respected long-term agent, how can you tell us that this report, based on the changes from February to today, how that report doesn't stand?
I think they went out of their way to send an email that said they have concerns, but they'll deal with me with them. And we have dealt with them. We've talked to them at length. I've made the point that they say they've done a lot study, but they haven't provided it. Not to the committee and not to me.
They summarize what it is, that there's no other blocks on this particular block that has that lot area and lot frontage. It would be the smallest, and they're saying there is one in the wider area that has less, but it's a different situation because it's a corner with flankage and et cetera, and parking on the flankage. So they're saying they have concerns with these variances as it relates to the appearance as a 3-story from the street. The proposed height. So, okay, you did take off one of the height, but I don't see how what you've done, even though they haven't said like they normally do, we have concerns. They said that, but they didn't say, and our previous letters, our previous report stands. But you haven't told me how this report doesn't stand.
I think my point is that made the point that they had concerns and they would discuss it with me, and they have made no further comment. They did not renew their previous comments in their report. And therefore, I would suggest that their main concerns, whatever they were at the time, are no longer relevant because they're not reconfirming their comments from the previous report.
Yeah, but very little changed. So.
We must have spoken 20 times on this, about the heights and about the setbacks and, you know, about the neighborhood, for example. So is it in character or is it out of character? Well, if you take their original comments, you would say it's out of character, but they're no longer saying that. So I would think that this email is much friendlier than their original report, and they have not reconfirmed their original report.
Yeah.
So, you know, based on conversations that I've had with them, I would think that, you know, they're satisfied that this is an acceptable application.
That email
guess
is
it's too bad
dated
we can't-
from 2022. So that predates the planning report. The planning
Right.
report references having concerns with the consent and the variances, and most of the variances haven't changed. So that report is still the valid one on file.
You're right. That's July 2022, not 2020. That's before the last hearing.
Yes.
Missed that. So yeah, so they really haven't, you know, it's too bad we can't call up Mr. Diebler. They're not present. They don't show up and come to the meetings to say, what's your intention here? You have a planning report that stands. It appears in logic to still stand because not much has changed, including the lot area and lot frontage, which they stated they have concern with based on their lot study. So how can we interpret? We believe Mr. You know, we like to prove we're pro-development. We like to move things along, but I don't see how I can, especially what Madam Secretary Treasurer just said. So they really haven't weighed in at all this time around. And it was a little simple email that would have said our report stands, or no, our report for whatever reason, we no longer have concerns with this application. So that's
my point exactly.
Does any of the other members have any comments or questions?
I have a question and a comment, Mr. Chair.
We don't have enough.
You know, given that consent is not an as of right, most applicants that come before us to do a consent application do a lot study themselves and show us how what is being proposed is comparable to the character of the neighborhood. So I guess my question is to the applicant, to Mr. Flynn, why would you not have done your own lot study and presented that to us as evidence that what you're proposing is comparable to the area?
The information that we generally receive, especially when we buy the city research, only gives information on previous applications and or decisions. So there are 86 decisions within the 500-meter circle.
I'm not referring to decisions. I mean, you can go on the city maps software and look at what is the frontage of each lot.
No, actually you can't. It doesn't give you that information. So there is the city zoning map, which shows you the configurations and the roads and the zoning. But it does not provide lot frontages, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's moved along from one extreme to the other, where committee staff used to do the lot studies and provide that, to nobody doing them, and then occasionally planning does it.
Well,
So planning has, for some reason, decided that they don't have to produce evidence to support their opinion. Now, if this was an appeal hearing, they'd be, you know, bringing this stuff forward like crazy to prove that their argument holds water. But they haven't done that, and they've refused to do it on my request.
Well, Mr. Flynn, I don't agree with you. I agree that in the application review section of their memo, which is less than 6 months ago, and I realize the world has changed a lot in 6 months, but not that much. I don't think the zoning hasn't changed. The lot area and lot frontage variances haven't changed. They specifically say, they don't maybe give you, you know, but they specifically say it would be the smallest with an immediate lot. That's the first information. Secondly, only one lot in the broader neighborhood, they didn't say what the broader neighborhood is, I agree, has a lot frontage that measures less than the proposed lot frontages, and that's at the corner of Rosalie and Haymarket, and that is, they distinguish that application because it has a greater frontage along the flanking and it's parking on the flanking street. So they have done it. They've told you. They haven't maybe given you a list of every address, like but they've given you the results of their lot study. And that was before the last hearing. So not much has changed. You took out one.
Oh, I don't think anything has changed. I agree with you completely.
South, you took out one variance, one small variance, but you didn't change their concern. Before you get to consider the variances, you got to consider whether the consent is appropriate, and they've said no. So you don't even get to your 7 variances that used to be.
Well, that's where we were originally.
Right. So
their position was that they were against the severance. Period.
Yeah. So you.
And they didn't even care what the minor variances were.
Okay, but you brought this application back in 6 months. You took out one small height variance. You didn't do any other work to counter what they've said in that letter, that the lot and frontage and the lot area are inappropriate. So I don't understand how you bring it back, a guy who's been doing this for 20 years, and think you're going to convince the committee that it's now appropriate without getting planning to explicitly.
Well, I think it has more to do with provincial policy statement. It has more to do with build more homes quicker, et cetera, et cetera. The city policy is to intensify. The provincial policy is to intensify. And I don't see that that is an issue. And the other thing that I've constantly said over the years is that planning often, or almost always, bases their opinion on precedent. And just by what you've been saying, they base this opinion on precedent. But they're not entitled to base their opinion on precedent. They are supposed to talk to the merits of the application. Is there merit to this application? Is it creating a new home in compliance with the provincial policy statement, with the city policies, and with the build more homes quicker policy? And that's what it's all been about for the last 6 months minimum. Is let's get I can't remember how many millions of homes they want to build over the next 10 years, but it's millions. They want intensification, and they want it big time. The other interesting thing that never gets talked about is that the province is very interested in intensifying for the purposes of paying for the TTC operation. The province contributes millions of dollars every year to the actual operation of the TTC, and they would like to see that reduced. And the only way that will be reduced is by intensifying and increasing the usage of the TTC.
Mr. Chair, we're up at the 5-minute mark by this point now.
Yeah, he's not having a discussion for the last 4 minutes anyway, so it's not strictly, he's not presenting now. He's answering my, we're going back and forth. I'm trying to ask him, please, Mr. Flynn, tell me how this planning report written less than 6 months ago.
So, Mr. Chair, there was an updated report. I'm sharing it now on the screen, dated July 26th. Okay. Sorry, it wasn't added to the file. Planning is recommending refusal.
There we go. Okay, so why didn't we see this report?
I'm sorry, someone in our office missed
Okay.
it.
Okay, we see it on the screen. I'm gonna. So they now have shown this to Mr. Flynn. They haven't shown this to us. Oh, so there's an updated report here. Beautiful.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate that we should be hearing this if there's a report that I haven't seen.
Okay. Mr. Chair, like irregardless of the current report, based on the old report from planning, I have the same concerns that are reiterated in there, and there's no evidence that those concerns have been addressed since then. I can't read the current report from planning, but I also would, if there's no questions, would move to reject this application because of the concerns that are iterated, and there is no evidence that those concerns are addressed.
Mr. Flynn, so we have this report. So what we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes is the fact that planning hasn't weighed in, and they were concerned in February, and there's been very little change. So, you know, just an email, our previous report still stands was missing, but now they've actually given us a whole new report that no one saw. But I don't think it comes as a big shock or surprise because, as I was saying, the inference is that the report would still stand because nothing's really changed in these less than 6 months since you were here. So I don't know if staff can just read out the summary of that report that you just pulled up on the board, but it reiterates, I guess, the old one. Here's where pests dated February 10th. It says they say dated February 10th, 2013. I think they made a mistake. It should be 23. It was deferred at the applicant's result, submitted a revised set of plans. Following changes, new minor variants. They summarized a few little changes, including the reduction in the height. And again, they just repeat the same thing. It's the smallest one. They just basically copy and paste out of their old letter about the fact that the other lot is distinguishable. They talk, revisions represent overall improvement. The heights are still out of character, and they still don't approve the approval of the consent and minor variance application. It doesn't, again, you were talking about, it doesn't respect or infers the physical character. So the question is, they're saying it's not within the prevailing character, which you said he never said. So again, Mr. Flynn, I don't think this application should be taken as a surprise to you, this revised report. I don't know, staff is appropriate after this point if he wants a deferral, but I don't know if that's appropriate if this new report came as a surprise, but it's more or less the same as the old report, which I think normal logic would have told anyone that they were still going to be concerned because there was no change. And Mr. Diebler in his updated report has not confirmed that.
Mr.
Members,
Chair,
what do you think?
Mr. Chair, I think the committee is coming to a conclusion irrespective of this planning report. And the bottom line is that the applicant has not provided any evidence that the consent is consistent with the neighborhood. So it's irrelevant that the planning department didn't provide the evidence, neither did the applicant.
That is the motion I put forward. I put forward a motion. Mr. Chair, I had the motion put forward to reject the application based on the previous planning memo because there's been no evidence that those conditions, I share the concerns that are in that previous memo, and there's been no evidence from the applicant that those concerns are addressed. I would propose that we not rely on the memo, the new memo from planning, because as the applicant has says, he hasn't had an opportunity to review it, nor has the committee. Based on the evidence that we did have, I am not satisfied that those concerns are addressed, and I moved a motion that the application be refused. And I was looking for a seconder, but dialogue continued, so I'm wondering if we could move on with that process.
We're still discussing it. So if at this point you're making that motion, is there anything anyone else would like to add? Otherwise, we'll vote on that motion. I think I agree that there's no need to We didn't need the new memo. The new memo is more or less a cut and paste job, just updating it to the old one.
I'll second the motion.
Flynn did make. Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Clerk.
Sorry, I'm seconding the motion on the floor.
Okay, Mr. Kermerick, thank you. Moved by Ms. Reddick, moved by Mr. Kermerick to refuse the application. All in favor? Okay, the motion is refused unanimously, or the application refused unanimously. The motion passes. Okay, thank you, Mr. Flynn. You can discuss with staff your next steps. Okay, so we can move on to the next application, which I believe is the last application of the afternoon, or item number 23, 15 and 35 TREHORNE Drive. It's an application to obtain consent to sever the property into 2 lots. And there's also any existing easements will be maintained. We have a draft R plan, a cover letter from Toronto Lands Corporation. We have revised engineering construction services and transportation memos. We have the material from the previous hearing because this matter was deferred from the June 22nd, 2023 hearing. And there is no construction, I believe, on this application. So any easements will be maintained and there is no construction. We have the cover letter and materials and draft R plan. And the speaker for this application is Amar Singh.
Mr. Chair.
Is he the only?
And members,
Yes.
that you were just about I was about to answer your question there. There are actually 2 folks here in the council chambers that would like to speak to the item as well, who aren't on your list. Additionally,
They are on my.
They are not.
They're not. So
They'll
all
be
I had on my list is Amar Singh.
Correct. And I'd also like to note, Amar has identified that they'd like to be on video. So Amar, if you'd like to go ahead now and turn your video on by clicking the start video button, you can do so. And I will go ahead and unmute you.
So again, this is no construction. I believe the revised transportation or engineering report talks about this is a consent application for a technical lot severance to sever the above noted property into 2 parcels with no changes to the existing use or built for. Okay.
There is a conveyance though for the road widening. That's part of this.
Yeah. Yes. And it says in the application that any existing easements will be maintained, and they go through that in that memo. So, okay, let's hear from the agent, and then we'll hear from the 2 people in the room who I assume are concerned neighbors.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Amar Singh, and I'm a land use planner at Toronto Lands Corporation. TLC is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Toronto District School Board, and we manage all land use planning and real estate matters on their behalf. We're requesting for a fairly straightforward severance of a TDSB-owned property into 2 parcels municipally located at 15 and 35 TREHORNE Drive. Both parcels already have separate utilities, services, and vehicular driveways. No changes to the existing use or build form are proposed. The TDSB would like to retain approximately 8 acres of the western portion of the site, comprising of parts 2 and 3 on the draft R plan. The TDSB will continue to serve this community with the existing Hilltop Middle School facility on this portion of the site. The TDSB would like to sever approximately 10 acres of the eastern portion of the site, comprising of parts 1 and 4 on Block B. This portion of the site contains the former Scarlett Heights Entrepreneurial Academy Secondary School facility. This school officially closed in 2018 due to declining enrollment and is no longer required by the TDSB. The Toronto Catholic District School Board has expressed an interest in purchasing the proposed severed parcel to continue its use for secondary school programming. The approval of this severance will provide the opportunity for another public agency to maximize the use of existing underutilized lands. This will also give the local community an opportunity to attend a new Catholic secondary school in their area. Engineering and construction and transportation services staff have advised that they require a land conveyance for a 0.4 meter road widening along Royal York Road. This application was originally scheduled to be heard on June 22nd, but was deferred at staff's request to circulate the updated draft plan identifying this road requirement. I provided staff with the updated plan, and as a result, staff confirmed that the requirement has been fulfilled and only the conveyance of the land remains. Planning, zoning, heritage, and urban forestry have all reviewed this application and advised that they have no objections or concerns. Therefore, TLC respectfully requests that the committee approve this application. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can you put the staff the location map on the board? I think it gives a good photo of what's going on. So the two buildings are being maintained, the two school sites, and then it's the big parcel in the back, the southern portion of the lot, although not straight across. So it looks like perhaps the people on currently, I guess it's an empty field or a sports field in relation to the two existing schools, and now there's going to be likely another building there, but that's certainly not before us at this point. You're just at this point just doing the severance, right?
At this point, it's a severance. It's generally down the center between the two buildings, and at this time, I'm not privy to any information from Toronto Catholic District School Board if they're planning to retrofit and renovate the existing secondary school building, or add an addition, or demolish and rebuild. I think they're analyzing their options at this time, but I'm not privy to that decision.
Okay. I'm just anticipating the fact of any concern to this. It's just you're just doing a technical severance at this point to separate out a new lot, or and it's a large 18-acre site, so it's not like you're taking 1 acre and dividing it into 3. You're taking 18 acres. Okay, so anyone have any questions for Mr. Singh, or if not,
I have a question. I just want to clarify the draft R plan, because there's 6 parts indicated. I'm just trying to understand, if we're just severing into 2 lots, why there are 4 parts, and is there going to be a sharing of the field, or what's the plan on that?
So previously, when this draft plan of subdivision was registered for these lands back in the 50s, this land was, 2 pins were created. However, since that time, this site has operated as a TDSB school site with an elementary and secondary school. And so that's why it appears that there's 4 parcels, but I've been advised by our real estate staff at TLC that through the process of the agreement of purchase and sale, they will be consolidating parts 2 and 3, and then parts 1, 4, and block B. So it will, with the potential approval, it would be 2 parcels.
So essentially, there'll be 2 separate playing fields, not 1 in common.
So with respect to the playing field, we don't know what the Toronto Catholic District School Board is planning to do at this time. If they're planning to reinstate the playing field, but we do know that it will be removed from the TDSB side of this property.
Okay, but any future development, you have to go through a new process in any case. So I'm just trying to get some assurances for the neighbors on this.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's segue to the 2 neighbors, whether they're the neighbors on the residences to the south and are concerned with some potential change, which is not yet actually before us today. So, okay, does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Singh before we do that? Okay, so again, I don't have the names or addresses of the people in the room, so perhaps the first one can come to the podium and identify themselves.
Thank you very much. My name is Marcus De Domenico. I'm the Toronto Catholic District School Board elected representative for Ward 2 Etobicoke Centre.
Sorry, what's your last name?
De Domenico, DE space DOMENICO.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the committee for taking the time to listen to my short delegation in support of this plan. The Toronto Catholic District School Board has for years wanted to expand in Etobicoke Centre to accommodate the thousands of students that are attending our Catholic school. There's currently only one school in this area, Michael Power St. Joseph. And we're very excited about the opportunity to have a secondary school for Catholic students, and in fact open to all students as is per the ministry requirements. We are looking forward to the site. We've worked very closely with our friends at Toronto District School Board. They've had committee meetings. They've been very, very supportive of keeping this land as a public institution, as a secondary school, and the green space to keep green and to provide our students with another opportunity to lessen the overcrowding, actually, at Michael Power by offering a secondary school. So we hope that you will support this application. Our families are absolutely thrilled that after decades of discussion, that finally this is an opportunity to make good use of an empty school and turn it into a new Catholic high school. And I'm open for any questions if you have anything to ask me at all.
Okay, and certainly at that time, there will likely be a application to Committee of Adjustment to deal with, in the event there's any variances to what you propose to build for the new Catholic secondary school.
Yes, sir, and to the committee, I'm not here really to speak in any fashion as a planner or for future. I don't mean to take on that role. I'm just here as the trustee representing 40,000 Catholic constituents in Ward 2. And to express our support for this and our excitement for this opportunity for the boys and girls to attend a new school.
And to advise this committee, there is a pressing need in this vicinity for a secondary Catholic school.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. I was just going to say, to that point, Michael Power St. Joseph is extremely overcrowded. We have a director's cap on it, so we do not allow other students. We have made, however, accommodations to accommodate Ukrainian newcomers to Canada to find extra space, hire extra staff. But the school, Michael Power St. Joseph, is really at its limit, and this will allow families from the eastern side of Etobicoke Centre to attend a new school or a renovated school, however we do it, and to right-size the opportunities for students in Etobicoke Centre.
Okay. And certainly, you know, it goes to one of the tests, the desirability factor, that there's a need for another school. So, and the members, any questions for the speaker? Or if not, we'll hear from the next speaker. Mr. Taylor?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Sir, it appears, I know this area very well. My cousin was first grade 9 student at what was once called Scarlet Heights Institute of Technology.
Right.
Just take a minute and think about the acronym.
Oh dear, did they not think that through?
Change the name the next day.
Well,
anyway, just anecdotal.
So we won't call it St. Helen Institute of Technology. I could guarantee you that. But thank you for pointing that out.
I've waited 45 years to relay that story.
Yes, and the timing is perfect.
My serious question is, you're buying the school. I know the school obviously very well. You don't have any athletic fields. Is that okay? How do you handle outdoor activities for the students on that property?
Great question. As we've done at Michael Power, we want to actually use the secondary, the portion that is south of the school, that field. We would ultimately like to turn it into a first-rate athletic soccer pitch, football field, lacrosse, you name it. It's a perfect space. It's the right size for a professional-sized field. And along with that question also, sir, to the committee, is that many, I coach soccer and boys and girls in soccer and football. We need facilities that we can also provide to the community, because Etobicoke has a dearth of that. We need to have more opportunities. And at Michael Power, we permit many soccer and football and lacrosse teams to come and use our field. So we're hoping to do that at the Scarlet location to provide a first-class facility for on that green space to have athletic opportunities. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other questions for the speaker, or we'll hear from the next speaker?
Thank you very much for your time. I much appreciated.
Mr. Chair, committee, my name is Dan McLean. I'm the TDSB School Board Trustee in Central Etobicoke. If I understand correctly, the chair has to determine whether two members of the TDSB can speak to this. We're okay with this? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You're in support of
yes,
brief?
sir. Yeah. We're. I was reelected last October, so I've had the opportunity to run twice. So I've canvassed in that area on 2 different occasions and spoken with the community. And the local community is very concerned about the potential use of the property because Scarlet Heights has not been operational for years and had a diminishing enrollment. So the community was very excited about the potential sale and that it would be used for in the manner in which it was designed and in the manner in which it would serve the community. So they're excited about that. We had a public meeting, which very few people attended, and everyone who attended asked questions, and their questions were satisfied. So we got no pushback, and the lack of people here objecting, I think, reiterates that. So I just came to speak in favor. We think this is a positive step for the. It allows us to. The sale will ultimately allow the Catholic Board to meet its goals, and the revenue from the sale will let the public board address our utilization needs elsewhere in the city. So this is a win-win scenario kind of thing for us. So we appreciate the committee's time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McLean. But I just for the record, I thought you're the trustee from the TSB, and the previous speaker was from the separate school board, from the Catholic board. So you're not from the same, or are you both from the TSB?
No, the
TDSB.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to complicate it. When I came and I suggest, yes, the previous speaker was from the Catholic board. I'm from the Toronto District School Board. Okay. When I came and suggested, beautiful. It was just mentioned to me that because the gentleman spoke on behalf of TLC and was at TDSB, and that there was some issue about whether a second member.
Yeah. Okay. You're sort of the and you're the you're both the elected officials. He's just speaking on behalf of the. So I don't think it's you're the last hearing anyway. It's not like we're here till 8 o'clock tonight. So no problem. Voice concern, and the most thing is that there is no members from the public. Let's say on Norgrove Crescent, or it doesn't mean when something goes ahead that they're not going to come forward. But at least at this point, there's no one here opposed to the application. So members, any remaining questions, or can we have a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, I'm happy to endorse this, what was described as a win-win situation for both school boards. I find it totally non-problematic, and I'm very supportive of it. So I move approval of the consent, subject to the transportation services conditions and the revised engineering and construction services conditions.
And the standard.
Okay, thank you.
And the standard conditions of consent.
Okay. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion.
Happy to second. I'm glad to see schools remain as schools.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Singh, and thank you to the 2 school trustees for taking time. I hope you've had an enjoyable morning watching the Committee of Adjustment applications. And I guess all we need now is a motion to adjourn.
I can move that motion.
Okay, Mr. Comerick, seconded by Mr. Taylor. All in favor? We're adjourned. And everyone have a safe and healthy Simcoe Day long weekend. And we'll see some of you back here on the 17th, and I will be there in person on the 17th. I promise. Okay,